The PIRC defense. Such an easy line to play. The good thing is you could play this against anything white plays. Today I'm going to teach you everything that you need to learn about the PIRC. All the opening moves, the middle game plans, the end game ideas, everything. In addition to that, I'm also going to be creating a membership only video where you could get the full access of the PIRC defense. So if you want to learn the PIRC, watch this full video. Apply what I teach and watch your ratings go through the roof. Picking things off in the 500 region, today I'm going to be showing you guys the pure defense. Very, very strong defense. I started off with pawn c4 after, which is a weird move, but we're always gonna, like, you see the first five, six moves, it's always gonna be the same. You play d6, you play knight f6, he guards the pawn, now we play g6. And the whole idea is to go bishop g7, followed by castling the king, and just like that, step one is out the way. Now, once you're through with step one, step two is to get rid of your light squared bishop, because the light squared bishop is usually the bad bishop in the pure. So I always like to just put the bishop on the g4 square. And then step three is to play moves like knight d7 followed by e5. But based on what I'm seeing here, this may be some queens or some king's Indian defense type of position, which is fine. We're still going to be using the same setup, knight d7 e5 or e5 knight d7, potato potato. Let's go knight d7 here. If he plays h3, we take. He immediately plays bishop to g5, but we know the drill. A piece is on our half of the board. We get rid of it. And I'm assuming he's going to be giving up his bishop for the knight, which I'm fine with. Let's just take, apply some more pressure here. He jumps in to hit the queen. My pawn is under attack. We have to pull the queen back. But my plan is to play f5 and start some attack on his king. Now that he plays h3, we already know the plan. Get rid of the bad bishop. And we also know how chess works, right? A piece is on our half of the board. What do? We neutralize them. So now he has to pull his knight back. Okay, he pulls the knight back. My plan was to play f5, but now he has a lot of pieces covering the f5 square. So let's just put the knight on c5, hitting the unprotected pawn. Eventually, I can play knight to e6, followed by knight to d4, and that's going to be a very strong score for my knight. So he puts the rook here. Let's go knight here. The plan is to put the knight on the d4 square. In some cases, I can also be trapping his queen. But if I play knight d4, the queen has this square. So maybe I'm going to play h5 first. So he plays b4. Now we play h5. Now the queen has no squares if I'm able to play knight d4. So now he has to be very careful. He was careful. He played g4. So now if I, oh, he wasn't careful. Because now if I hit the queen still has no squares. Watch this. Boom. The queen has no squares. If the queen goes here, what move am I going to play next? Very simple. Maybe he's going to resign here though. But if he puts the queen here, then knight to e2 is just going to be a fort. Very simple plan. For 17 moves into the PIRC defense, and I'm already winning this guy's queen. And he resigns. More PIRC defense against 600 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 600. Showing you guys some more PIRC defense. Same idea that we spoke about. The knight goes to f6, hit the pawn, and then from here we get our bishop out the center. So he guards the pawn, we go g6, he moves the bishop, we fianchetto the bishop, and now I'm just gonna get the king out the center of the board. So step one is out the way. Step two is usually to put the bishop on g4 and trade the bishop off. But putting the bishop on g4 is not possible here because he's just gonna play f3 and chase away our bishop. Whenever you're not able to put your bishop out and then trade it off, feel free to just play knight d7 and then play e5. Usually the light squared bishop will find its way in the game. And some PIRC defense players who is advanced at playing the PIRC defense, they also do not like to go bishop g4 and give up their bishop for the knight too early. But that's for like some advanced PIRC defense player. Like it makes the game a bit more complex because you may not finish your development after you reach move 15. So he moves the rook. Let's just play e5, continuing with the same plan. Bishop goes to e3. And one thing I like to do when I see this bishop on e3, I like to just immediately harass it with this very annoying move, knight g4. And I am going to be able to take the bishop on the next move because he's not able to move the bishop. And that's because my knight is attacking both of his focal points, which is only being guarded by the king. And if he moves the bishop out the way, queen to h4 hits h2 and f2 at the same time, and he'll just be losing material. Okay, he plays rook to f1. So he's basically saying you're gonna take my bishop, but my rook is gonna get the file, and that's true. But before I take the bishop, let's just go queen to h4 first, threatening the mate. And this is not me saying, oh, hopefully he's not seeing the checkmate. Remember, guys, if you're trying to attack someone's king, the king needs to be weak. You don't. It's harder for you to attack someone's king, and then the king is not. Anyways, Mr. Big Guy Tan from Netherlands didn't play h3. I played g3, which means that's just a checkmate. But more PIRC defense against 700 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 700. We're playing some more PIRC defense. Knight, he moves, we go knight f6. We hit the unprotected pawn. Usually they guard the pawn, but we simply need to fianchet to the bishop, get the king out the center of the board. Okay. When they go bishop g5, it's usually a sign that we're playing against an aggressive player, but usually a lot of attacks doesn't work against the pure. There's going to be a lot of times when it looks like they're attacking you, but once you defend against those little threats, your pawn structure is just already going to be better. So step one is out the way. Our king is castled. Everything is good. Step two is just to get the bishop to g4 and, wait on them to play h3, give up the bishop for the knight, and then development is going to be way easier for us. So he castles his king, and I also like to play moves like knight c6, because now if he plays h3, he's losing material. Because I want you guys to notice how this pawn is the main defender of the pawn on d4. So if he plays h3 now, I get rid of the knight, then take the pawn on d4. So he plays the move pawn to d5. But what I'm going to do in this position is now I'm going to play knight to d4 because the knight is pinned. I'm applying more pressure to the pinned knight. So I'm assuming he has to play bishop to e2, and then I'm going to be able to take on e2. So because usually in the PRK you're giving up your light squared bishop, which means the opponent gets the bishop here. So if you're able to do anything that gets back the bishop here, then that's definitely going to help the position. So, and also I think once I take on e2, this is just a decent position for me. His knight is going to be pinned. Still expecting him to eventually play h3 to attack my bishop. And remember, we usually play knight d7 to e5. So anytime it becomes a case where you play knight to c6 and then move your knight to either the e5 or the d4 square, then usually we don't necessarily have to always play e5 anymore. Sometimes we could now play this move c6 and then we could take on d5. Now, this could have a downside. For example, once they take back, your e pawn becomes a target. So you still have to ensure that you know exactly what you're doing. But he took, let's just take back, and now our rook has the open b file. Okay, he's got getting his rook in the game. He's also putting the rook on the same line as our queen, so we have to be careful there. I'm going to play a very cute little move, queen to a5. First of all, we're at move 12. The king and the two rooks are the only two pieces on the board, so that is, we're already doing something right. But I want you guys to notice how I am attacking this bishop. It's being guarded by the knight, but the knight is the only defender of the bishop, which is why we're not winning. Okay, maybe we're not winning. I don't think we're winning. Once I take the knight, he needs to take my knight. And if I take his rook, he needs to take my bishop. But I did eliminate the knight, which is the main defender. He also, come on, bro, why would you even double up the pawns? You didn't even have to double up the pawns, but he did blunder the bishop. So let's just grab the free bishop. Now the king has to move, and I'm actually thinking about some checkmates here, guys. Like, for example, we already know about focal points. Focal points are basically the pawns and squares around the opponent's king. The best focal point to attack is the pawn or the square that is only being guarded by the king, which means h2 and g2 is now my target. So I'm going to hit him with this move, queen to h4, targeting the focal point on h2. And if I'm able to get my bishop to e5 safely, then he could be getting checkmated on h2. All right, so rook d2 did nothing. In fact, It did something, but for me, because remember when I said I need to get my bishop to the e5, it doesn't necessarily have to be the e5 square. Once I'm able to apply more pressure to this focal point, so let's go. And by the way, guys, focal point is going to help you to know how to attack someone. Because once you know about focal point, you're like, okay, boom. What square, what pawn is only being guarded by the king? And based on how your pieces are orientated, you're going to be able to know which one of those squares you need to focus on based on the square that it's easier for your piece to attack. And for example, in this case, it's the h2 square because g2 is also only being guarded by the king. But how am I going to get more pieces on g2? Maybe queen h3, knight h5, knight f5, but that's going to take me some time. Once I hit him with bishop f4, it's now GG's and he has to resign. He plays h3, but now it's just checkmate in two moves. We take on h3, king has to move, queen h2, and that's going to be a checkmate. So king has to go here, and that's just a checkmate. More PIRC defense against 800 level players. Stick around. The opponent is now 800. Let's play some more PIRC defense. d4, we go knight f6, we hit the pawn. Knight c3, we already know all about this. We play g6. This is going to be one of the most played line because someone is just going to just normally develop their pieces. So I'm going to talk about this line in depth in the Perk Defense Theory video, in the membership video, but developing like this could lead to a mistake. For example, after you castle your king, if they choose to just castle their king, because the bishop is on c4 and then they do this, we were able to just take on e4 and sacrifice. Another thing that I'm going to discuss in that membership video is if they play e5 without castling, then we're able to take on e5. Because if they take with the pawn, now we can take their queen. If they take with the knight, they have to pull a piece back. If they take with the king, they're losing material, which is why he took with the knight. But now I'm thinking about playing moves like c5 and just start to attack his center. But maybe he's going to take. So let's just continue with the plan. Let's just go knight d7. If he takes, we take with the bishop, and eventually my bishop could go on this long diagonal. Okay, he's trading, but he's moving the knight three times. He's trading the knight for piece that I've only moved once, which means he lost two moves. That's simply how you have to look on it. So now he castle his king. E5 is kind of impossible here. So let's just play e6. E6 is to prevent the pawn from coming to d5, but he is still able to play that move. Bishop to g5 is immediately pinning my knight. So let's go h6, just getting that bishop out of our half of the board. And he's giving up the bishop for the knight, which is even good news for us. And now I have two pieces attacking his pawn on d4. Now, this is still a chance for him to move the pawn to d5, but let's see if he's going to do it. Knight e4 was played. Knight e4 is not a bad move though, because if I take stakes, both of my bishops are unprotected, and rook to d1 will be a fork. So I have to be very careful here. So let's not take on d4, and let's just play the move queen to f4. We're still attacking the knight. We're still applying pressure to this pawn on d4. And if I'm able to play rook to d8, maybe bishop c6, then I can consider taking the pawn on d4. So he moves the rook in order to defend the knight. So let's just play bishop c6 now then, since it applies more pressure to the knight, and it also clears this d file. So rook to d8 is coming next, but it's not really hard for him to just play c3 and guard the pawn. But I'm assuming I can also play e5 and apply more pressure if my rook is on the same line as the queen. So he plays f3. Now we swing the rook over in the game, just trying to get all my pieces active here. So every piece of mine is now active except my f rook. I have two pieces attacking d4. He only has one, but he plays c3. And if I play e5, maybe he's going to play d5. But that's fine. Let's just play e5. Because if he plays d5, I'm seeing where I could sack the bishop. Once the bishop takes, I play c6 and hit the bishop. And then maybe he takes on f7, but I'm just going to take backhand. It should just be a fine position. Maybe I don't have to do that right now, though, because once he pushes, he's not able to take due to the pin. So I can also just use the time to play something like f5. But he plays g3, which is not a bad move, hitting my queen. And by the way, my queen only has one square. Like the queen looks trapped, but it's not because it's able to go to f5, but that's the only square for the queen. The thing is, he is pushing pawns on the side that his king is on. And the more you push these pawns on the side that your king is on, the more you weaken your king. Well, he's trying to use his king to now defend the pawns, but I have what, one, two, three attackers versus two defenders, which means once I take on d4 here, that's now just a pawn. And if he takes back, maybe I even play rook takes, apply pressure to the knight, the bishop, the queen. Now it's getting weird. Like pawn to d5, I probably would have sacked and play c6, but at least he wouldn't have lost an entire pawn. So now that he takes, we take with the rook, hit the queen, hit the bishop, and apply more pressure to the knight. Now we have one, two, three pieces attacking the knight. He has one, two pieces defending the knight. And I am thinking about sacking the rook and then taking here, but that will just not work. So let's just take here. And he has to take, we're going to take back, and we will be ahead by 2 pawns. Another thing I notice is once I get rid of this knight, the knight no longer guards the d2 square. So what if he takes with the pawn and I check him on d2? Does that give me anything? Definitely does. Let's check him on d2. Yo, this guy could be getting checkmated. First of all, if he blocks with the rook thinking, oh, but now I'm attacking your queen, wrong. Because then the rook is pinned and pin pieces don't protect, and my queen will take his pawn. If he pulls the king back, that's already mating too. He did block with the rook, but remember, pin pieces does not protect. I am able to legally take on e4 with check, and he's not able to take my queen due to the pin. These are the types of tactics I will be explaining in my book. Sure to get the book when it's out. We are still working on it, but now he has to find somewhere for his king. Okay, putting the king there, that's where the game ends because, first of all, this king and this rook is on the same line. So now I'm just going to check him on h1, force the king to move to f2. I could take the rook, then take the other rook, but then bishop to d4 is also a very strong move. So let's check on h1. If king f2, there's bishop d4 check, king can't move, rook can't block, queen then has to block. Ah, he has to block with the queen. That can't be a good sign. Do I have mate? Maybe check here? Nah, I'm just going to take the queen, take the rook, take the other rook. That's GG's. So he blocks with the queen. We take the queen with check, very important, because my queen is under attack. He took with the king. We take this rook with check, very important. Then we take the other rook, and this is now just game. The opponent resigns. More PIRC defense against 900 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 900. More PIRC defense coming your way. All right, so knight f3, let's just go knight f6. Very simple idea, applying pressure to the pawn, and eventually we're just going to fianchetto our bishop. So he guards the pawn, now we play g6. We know what the simple plan is here. Bishop on c4, we fianchetto the bishop, get the king castled like it's the same idea. We're always going to play this same 5 moves if they don't do anything to harass us. For example, if they don't play e5. And if they play pawn to d4 here, we have a very thematic sacrifice in the pair that you need to know, which is knight takes e4. And then once the knight takes, we play d5 and sacrifice. If they play something else like d3, then we go bishop g4 and get rid of the bad bishop. But because he plays d4, we take on e4 here. He's going to take with the knight. We play d5. If you call yourself a PIRC defense player or you want to try out the PIRC, you just have to know this idea. You just have to. So he took, we play d5, hit the bishop, hit the knight, so we're winning back material. And usually it's best to save the bishop because bishops are better than knights. But let's see what this guy's going to do. Okay, he gave up the bishop, which is also even better for us. Because now I take it the knight. I'm assuming he wants to go back and said, hey, I'm gaining some tempo on your queen, which is something he could say. But I'm just going to pull my queen back and everything should be fine here. He's also not able to play bishop f4. Maybe he's going to play knight b5, hit the queen. But then I should be able to put my queen somewhere where it also attacks his knight. From here, I'm just trying to finish my development, get the bishop out, pin the knight, which is very thematic in the PIRC. He did play this move. Now I'm going to go queen to b6 because I want to hit the knight. I'm also trying to keep pressure on his pawn on d4 because once I hit him with bishop g4 and I eliminate this knight, it's one of the main defender of the pawn, so that could be winning me a pawn. Now he plays a4 to guard the knight, but we're going to play this thematic PIRC move, which is pawn c6, getting the knight out of our half of the board. If he plays a5, that's just a free knight. And always play this move bishop g4 if you get the chance, because that way you're able to get rid of your bad bishop. And you need to know that in the PIRC defense, your light squared bishop is usually your bad bishop. So let's get rid of the bad bishop. Remember, the knight is one of the main defenders of the pawn. I already have two pieces attacking the pawn. So if he plays a regular move like h3 here, I'm able to eliminate the knight, take the pawn, and that tactic is called removing the guard. That's what he did. Now I'm just going to take. So I'm assuming he's going to play queen takes. And then we just take on d4. I could also take with the queen, but I don't want him to play rook to d1 and gain any tempo on my queen. So he took with the queen. Let's take with the bishop. Just like that. 30 moves in the PIRC defense. And we're already ahead by a pawn. All right, so bishop e3. To me, that looks like a drawback mistake because it leaves this unprotected, but my bishop is under attack. If I pull back, I lose my queen. I can't develop to defend the bishop unless I'm going to play e5, which is not a bad move, because if he takes, I take it the knight. I can also just take queen takes and go into the endgame because I'm ahead in material. But I like this idea of e5 because remember, guys, to take is a mistake and you should only trade if it improves your position. All right, so now he pulls his queen back. Now I could say there's nothing guarding b2, and we are definitely taking that free pawn. Because not only do I take the free pawn, his knight is also now under attack. So it's not like he could play a move like rook to b1 and say, hey, I'm trapping your queen because I'm just going to take that knight. And if he moves the knight, I could also take the rook because two rooks are usually better than a queen. But usually you don't have to complicate the position like that if you're already winning. So he took on e5. Let's just take back, hit the knight again. And then I'm assuming no, he's going to move the knight. All right, so he plays e4, and there's actually some hidden idea that this guy has where he checks on f6 and play queen e5. So I think I have to play d3 here to prevent this idea. I mean, if he takes with the pawn, he loses the queen, but it's not really hard for him to play queen takes. Once he plays queen takes, then I should be able to pull my queen back. I am behind in development though, so I need to quickly get my knight off the back rank. So he took with the queen, trying to find some safe squares for my queen. Queen e5 should be safe for the time being. Let's try queen e5. And if he puts the rook on the same line as my queen, I should be able to play rook to e8. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Or maybe I will actually. So he did play rook to e1. And I'm going to just use that time to either develop my knight or play rook to e8. If I have to develop though. Develop the knight. He gets a discovered attack. Let's say knight d6. That's annoying. Rook to e8, knight d6. Then I trade. After the king moves, my development is still not the best though. That's the thing. And if I go here, he checks. King up, he goes here. All right. I have to prioritize development here, guys. I have to prioritize development. So let's just develop. If knight d6, then I just need to find somewhere safe for my queen. Maybe f4 to put some pressure on this pawn. But it looks like my b7 pawn is hanging, which is kind of crazy because I got two pawns and I had to give them back because I didn't finish my development. Okay, pulling the knight back to c3 that was not the move, bro. It would have been like if you have a discovered attack on someone, try to move your piece somewhere where you attack something. So try to look for something that is weak. Because now I'm still ahead in material. I'm just going to move my queen somewhere safe. Let's say the c7 square. And then I'm going to get my rooks in the game. And keep in mind, I'm ahead by a pawn. This rook is more active than any one of my rooks, and it's his turn to play. He's able to put this rook on the open file. So I don't mind just trading the two rooks off the board here and try to win the endgame. All right, so he centralizes the knight. Knight f6 is still very dangerous. And to make it not as dangerous, I should be able to play f5, hit the knight. Because now there's no knight f6, meaning he is able to check my king. But I should be able to just move the king and I'm fine. Maybe even king to h8. So that way, if he checks it again, I'm able to block with the queen. So he checks. Let's move the king out the way. Knight to g5 will be threatening a fork here. So we have to be a bit careful. So if knight g5, I may play rook e8. Shouldn't be afraid of any knight checks because king g7, and I should be fine. All right, he's going for the trades, and I'll gladly accept the trades. You shouldn't be trading down in material, bro. So now he plays queen takes. He's trying to get this rook on the 7th. We cannot allow this. If I play b6, then maybe he gets the queen down there. If I takes rook takes, yeah, that should be fine. Let's go b6. If he checks my king, I block with the queen. And then my 7th rank is going to be guarded. So right now, the only thing I'm worried about is my 7th rank. You know what would be a very strong move? If he ignores the fact that I'm attacking his queen and play rook to e7. Because even though I'm ahead by a pawn and I'm going to take his queen, he's going to take my queen. His rook is going to be on my 7th. My pawns are going to be doubled. I'm going to go rook to c8 in that position though, but let's see. That's what he played. Yo, I noticed that these guys play very well whenever they use up their time. But the thing is, you may just not have enough time to convert this into a win. Let's just go rook to c8 here. If he trades, then that's good for me because I'm ahead in material, but I'm just trying to protect my pawn on c6. Once he moves the rook, then I'm going to move my rook and put it somewhere active. All right, so rook goes to d7. If I go here, he's going to go here. I cannot afford to make this guy just double up on the. So I'm going to go here. If he doubles up, then I'm going to have to take. Okay, he goes here. How does this work? If I guard, he goes here. And then the plan is to go here. All right, let's do it still. If he goes here, I may have to play g5. And then after he goes here, I go here. But it's going to be a very hard endgame to win. I think white is better here. That also does the trick. That also does the trick. So let's go g5. And then once he gets the second rook on my 7th, I play rook h6. And he's also winning my h pawn. Whoa. Okay, he plays c4. Guy's being very patient. Let's play a5. At least I didn't lose the pawn. At least I didn't lose the pawn. And now I'm going to try to do something with this rook because this rook is already tied down doing defensive stuff. He's trying to get his king in the game. Let's try to prevent him from doing that. And then he's attacking my pawn. But now I'm going to play g4. If he takes the pawn, then I take his pawn. And then we're counter-attacking. Huge mistake is going to be to take my pawn. Because if he takes my pawn on g4, then that's going to be a very sad checkmate. So he puts the king back on h1, but now I'm able to take this pawn, and I'm now ahead by 2 pawns. And then he puts the king on h2, but then I'm able to take this pawn. I'm assuming he's going to take back. It's still a very weird position. I'm ahead by 2 pawns, but it still feels weird. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to check the king, and then once the king move, I'm going to start rolling this. No, that doesn't even work. That doesn't even work because now he's hitting this. God, so I have to go back and then he's going to take the pawn. How am I going to survive this? All right, let's go here. No, can't do that. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. We have to do it. I'm going to have to try to start rolling my pawn up the board. If he moves this rook or take this pawn, then my other rook will be able to enter the game. He also has no time on the clock, which is very good for us. All right, now the position is equal, but I'm losing this pawn. Ouch. All right, let's put the rook here. I'm also losing this pawn, but if he takes, I take. I'm just trying to roll the pass pawn up the board. So he took, I take. I'm also attacking this. Remember that pass pawn scares people, guys. Now he has both of his rooks on my 7th again. So I have to go back over to guard the pawn. I can't even take because he's going to be able to draw the game. And then he's also able to take this pawn. He didn't. He pushes the pawn. God, he's rolling his pawns up the board, yo. Let's do this. If he push, I go here. Takes, push. So he checks. Okay, we have to do this. If he push, maybe I check. Yeah, this seems to be losing, but the guy has no time on the clock. He hits the rook, can't move the rook anywhere else. Okay, let's just pull back. Once he pushes, then I have to maybe do this. He has 20 seconds on the clock. God, this guy's playing some chess. If I go here, I lose. Wait, yeah. Oh, but if I go here, I also lose. So I have to go here. Then he's going to go here and then here. Can I flag this guy? That's where the rook is going next. So let's put the rook here. If he checks, good. That messes up the position big time. Because now I take this rook. And if he takes my rook, I get behind the pawn and he's not able to win anymore. Mr. 900 from South Africa. Good game, bro. He only has 10 seconds on the clock. Now I'm just ahead by a pawn. And this is why I tell you guys that your end game skills needs to be up to par. Because I was completely lost in that game. But I was able to defend. I was able to defend quickly. And he wasn't able to convert. So let's go king to f5 here. He only has 5 seconds on the clock. He checks. Let's just move. And my plan from here is to continue to roll this pawn up the board. He's going to win this pawn, but unfortunately, he has no time. Like this position should still be a draw, but he lost. More pure defense against 1000 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1000. Blessing you guys with some more pure defense. All right, let's go knight f6 at the pawn. Fianchet to the bishop. Get the king out the center of the board. Regular procedure. All right, so he guards the pawn. Let's go g6. We know the idea here. He develops, we develop, castling on the next move. Okay, he's also getting his bishop out. Let's castle the king. And then once he castled the king, we go bishop g4, and we basically just got rid of our bad light squared bishop. He immediately plays h3. Let's take. Once they take back, I like to immediately play c6. I don't want any little tricks, guys. Unfortunately, some of you guys are going to fall for this, where you took the bishop, then you start to play normal moves, and then once they push, you lose your pawn on b7. Please don't be that guy. So remember how important this pawn c6 move is, because I can also play b5, b4. I can also develop my queen, and knight d7 to e5 is coming next. And by the way, guys, if you haven't liked the video as yet, this is a good time to like the video. You know, if you've been enjoying the videos, it does a lot for the channel when you like. So bishop e3 was played. Okay, we don't want to play e5 just yet. Let's stick to the plan. Let's just play knight d7. Okay, guy, we're 10 moves in, by the way. His king and his two rooks are the only pieces on the back rank. Guy knows how to play chess. But let's continue with the plan. Let's play e5. If he takes, I'm actually considering taking with the knight because it hits the queen and the bishop. But my pawn on d6 is going to be backwards. So I'm consider taking with the knight, but maybe I'm actually going to take with the pawn. Let's. Okay, he plays d5. Whenever they play d5, then I immediately start thinking about how I'm going to play f5 and attack on the king side. Sometimes taking is good, but I don't see that being good here because if I takes knight takes, my pawn on d6 becomes too weak. So let's just play c5, close the center of the board, and then my plan from here is to play f5 and start some attack on the king side. He got his rook in the game. Timing is not really important in the when the position is closed. So getting the rook to d1 is still putting the rook behind this pawn. It's not bad, by the way, but I don't see how it does too much. Now I'm going to pull my knight back to e8 because remember that pawn planning has a lot to do with pawn breaks. So I want to play f5, maybe even f4, but whenever I play f5 for some reason, everybody take on f. It's not really good to take on f5 because then black just has so many options. He could play e4, he could play f4. Let's see. He puts the other rook in the game. Now this player, his elo is 1000, and I think he got to 1000 by just playing very simple chess, by getting all his pieces in the game, and usually his opponent blunder against him. So if you're not 1000, learn something from this guy because he's been playing very, very principled chess. Then he plays a3. So I'm assuming we're at the point where he's just not sure what to do, so he just pushed the a pawn. But it's fine. Like if you manage to get all your pieces on good squares, you don't necessarily have to do too much. You know, sometimes you could wait until your opponent makes a mistake, but I'm not necessarily seeing myself making any huge mistakes here. In fact, I already have some good space on the king side. I'm going to play a6 here. So maybe he thinks I also don't know what to do, but my plan is actually to play b5 to gain space on the queen side. And then maybe I could even play c4 and attack the queen. All right, so the knight went back to e2. Doesn't do much, assuming he wants to play c4, but I'm going to immediately play b5. Now, if he plays c4, I could consider taking, or maybe I could just defend the B pawn. This is like a very ideal position for black because now I'm basically attacking on both sides. So I'm basically controlling the pace of the game. Do I want to go f4? Do I want to take on e4? I'm not going to take though because queen takes isn't too bad for him. I'm going to play this move, rook to b8. and just protect the pawn. If he takes, I take back and I'm fine. In some cases, I want to take on c4 and then grab the pawn on b2, which is why he plays rook to b1 to protect the pawn. But I think he's now in defensive mode. I think he's in defensive mode. You definitely don't want to go in defensive mode, bro. I just don't think he's entirely sure what is happening here. All right, I'm gonna now continue my king side attack. Let's go king to h8, maybe rook to g8, put the rook on the same line as the king, so that way eventually I can start rolling these pawns up the board. Now he plays b4, not a bad move at all. And now will be the time where I play f4, because there's no playing rook to g8 if he already has two pieces attacking. He also pulls the knight back, which means I don't mind if he takes on c5 because I'm going to take on c5 and hit the queen. Also, if he takes on b5, I just take back on b5 and I'm fine. So let's just play b5, g5 here and continue with some kingside attacks. What he needs to do is apply as much pressure to my b pawn. So maybe even knight c3, and then he's going to have a lot of attackers. Because I want him to take here, and I'm assuming he wants me to take here. Actually, if he takes with the pawn, I'm even considering taking with the rook. Because if I take with the pawn, I may eventually have a weakness on the b5 square. Okay, he pulls his knight back to e2. Why? Guess the knight is coming here. Not a bad plan. Okay, let's go knight f6. Continuing with our plan, I want to go h5. I want to go g5. And remember, guys, we do not necessarily want to be pushing pawns on the side that our king is on. But in this case, I have good justification. Also, in the PIRC defense and the King's Indian defense, you can, you know? Yo, did this guy really saw that if he gets his knight to c6, it would be a fork? So he maneuvered his knight all the way to a5 to threaten this fork. If he saw that, then that's not bad, bro. Especially for 1000. You know, he knows how to maneuver, and that's not bad. All right, so we have to defend against that threat. So let's just move the queen out the way. And also, he notices that my c6 square is weak, and he got the knight all the way around to c6. Also not bad. All right, so he's hitting the rook. We have to do something about the rook being under attack, and if I move my rook, he's gonna win this pawn. So let's just go, let's go rook to b6, keeping the b pawn guarded, and I just need to focus on my attack over here. And look on the move that he just did, queen e2. My opponent is doing a lot of prophylactic thinking. It's like he sees what I'm trying to do and he's trying to prevent it because he's applying more defense to the g4 square. So that way, if I push, eventually he's going to be able to win a pawn. Now, in this position, I have an idea of just taking on c4. So that way, it pulls this queen away from defending g4 and then I take. So let's do that. Let's take on c4. In a position like this, we would say the queen is overworked. And it's one of the weaknesses that you guys want to know. It's also one of the main weaknesses that I discussed in my book. Like basically what I did is I told you guys about all the weaknesses to look for. And once you're able to know all the weaknesses that you're looking for, then it's going to be easier for you to spot tactics. So he pulls the bishop back to d1, which is also not a bad square for the bishop because maybe he wants the bishop on a4, which is a decent diagonal for the bishop. But to continue with my attack, I'm now going to play the move queen to g6, just maneuvering my pieces towards his king side. I'm also applying pressure to the e4 pawn twice. He is guarding it twice though, so doesn't do me too much. Pawn to g3 followed by just getting my pieces on the h file is now my plan. And then him playing pawn to f3 is actually helping me because now I'm going to play. Okay, we have to think about it because if I play pawn to g3 too early, he's able to just run away with his king and then I get nothing. So we have to be very careful. We have to ensure that we do not rush this. This bishop on g7 is actually not doing anything now. So let's go bishop h6. This is me trying to improve my bishop. So moving the bishop to h6, then to g5, then to h4. Okay, knight c actually didn't see knight c6 anytime at all. This guy is knows what to do when it comes to using his knights. But anyways, let's just move the queen. He is attacking my queen. I'm assuming he wants to go knight f5. It's a good score for the knight as well. And let's just go bishop to, it's very tricky now. I need to get rid of that knight. Maybe I need to sacrifice my rook for that knight, but we need to get rid of that knight. So what if I just play G3 here, he's not going to take my bad bishop. So if I play G3, he starts running. Yeah, let's do that. Let's play G. He needs to start running. The whole idea was the moment I play G3, he starts to run his king over this side, which is, oh, bro, damn, this guy's playing some chess. All right. So move my bishop here. He runs here. Put my queen here, though, because then I'm attacking this. How does he even guard it? There's no rook G1 because his rooks aren't connected. Hmm. Hmm. I'm not sure where I need my bishop though, because putting the bishop on this square doesn't really do much anyway. So maybe I should just pull it back. Yeah, let's just pull the bishop back. Now I'm threatening to check and then take. And if he runs, I go here. His G2 pawn is weak, and I'm not seeing exactly how he's going to guard that pawn. So he plays bishop to B3 to connect his rooks because the guy's just trying to run. So the thing is, I'm going to check. He's going to move. I'm going to take with check. He's going to run. I'm going to take with check. And he's going to keep running. But then I'm going to have two very strong pass pawns. I mean, my king is going to be slightly weak, but I'm taking the free pawns any day. Now we take with check. Again, he's going to run, and then we're going to take with check. And, this should just be winning for black. It's another good thing about the position is I can also take on b4 and then start my attack on the queen side because I still have pieces that could go on the queen side. No, now what I'm noticing is the queen and the king is on the same line. I also noticed that he's trying to check me here. I'm trying to take on e4, and then after queen takes, I takes, and then after rook takes, I takes, and that's just winning. I mean, that's three pawns. So takes, rook takes, then I take. Three pawns has to be enough. Or maybe I should just push. I mean, it's a pass pawn. Pushing a pass pawn is going to scare him, but I don't want the pawn to be there by himself. Maybe I should take here. Maybe I should just take this. If he checks, I just move. It's fine. Yeah, three pawns. There's no way I should have issues winning a game being ahead by three pawns, right? Oh, by the way, guys, this is like a removing the guard tactic. This is an X-ray on the knight. The knight is the on the defender. The pawn is the on the defender of the knight. So we take. But what if I take and he puts the knight here, hits the queen? That would okay, it's fine. Let's just take. Because if he hits the queen, then I take on d2 and I'm hitting back his queen. And I don't mind trading because I'm ahead by three pawns. So he took with the rook. Now we take. The good thing is there's no rook h1 anymore because the queen covers the square. We're just ahead by three pawns. All the three pawns are also pass pawns. Okay, bro, you can't do that, bro. You can't be down by three pawns and asking somebody to trade queens. Like, that was my plan. That was my plan. One thing I want you guys to know is if you're able to have two pawns on the third or on the sixth, if you're playing with the white pieces, then you're technically these two pawns are better than the rook. So he plays bishop h6. Not sure why. Guess he's trying to play fast, win on time. Pawn to g2 hits the rook, which is the main defender of this bishop. This rook is also already overworked because it's not only guarding the bishop, it's also trying to prevent my pawn from queening. So this is now just GG's for white. Guys applying pressure to the pin piece, but your rook is hanging, bro. Like, I have a queen on the board. You're not gonna checkmate me with just a rook and a bishop. Let's just move our king out the way. His bishop is under attack. If he moves the bishop, he loses the rook. And now I'm just trying to checkmate this guy. Where's my checkmate now? All right, let's just roll this pawn up the board. It should be easier to find mate if I have two queens. He checks. Let's just move. Again, just a check. I'm about to have two queens on the board. Okay, he pulls the bishop back. Now we queen the pawn, and let's find that checkmate. Let's find that checkmate. So we check here, but the opponent resigns. More PIRC defense against 1100 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1100. Let's play some more peer. So the knight goes to f6 to immediately attack the pawn. They guard the pawn. We play g6, fianchet to the bishop, get our king out the center of the board. All right, he's developing. Let's just follow the game plan. And he plays d3 instead of d4, which means the sacrifice on e4 is not going to work. But let's just get the king out the center of the board. He got his king out the center, and then we play bishop g4. The purpose of bishop g4 is to get rid of the bad light squared bishop, knowing that the light squared bishop is usually the worst placed piece in the PIRC. And then once the queen move, we continue with the plan, knight d7. Eventually, we want to play e5, but there's also this idea of playing knight to e5, which forks the queen and the bishop. So for example, now that he played bishop to g5, we could actually go knight e5, which hits the queen, hits the bishop. We're going to be able to take the bishop and double up the pawns, and then eventually we'll be able to play e5. I'm also going to play h6 to just get his bishop out of my half of the board. So, okay, he puts the queen here, which means I'm no longer able to play h6, but I'm still going to take on c4 because it doubles up his pawn and he no longer has the bishop here. So let's just continue with the game plan. e5. Maybe he wants to go bishop to h6. He didn't. He's putting his rook on the same line as my queen, something that I don't want. Now I'm thinking about qe7, but knight to d5 is a move. Now, what if he plays knight d5 and I take? He takes the queen and I take his queen. He takes the rook and I take his rook. He takes the bishop and I take his bishop. And then he takes, and then it's just a drawn endgame. So I don't really need to go in all of that. Let's just move the queen. Let's see, where do I move the queen though? Because the knight wants to come here. And if I play c6, it's not very hard for him to apply more pressure to d6 because it's not really easy for me to swing my rook over in the game. So first I'm going to put the queen on, let's say d7, maybe swing the rook over to d8. Then I could try to play c6. Okay, now he plays f4, which is also good news for me. What he's trying to do makes sense, but I don't think he's doing it the right way. So I'm trying to take on f4 and then isolate the pawn on e4. Or maybe I want to play h6 first to chase away the bishop, then take on f4. And then once he takes back with the any piece, I fork. Or maybe I play h6, chase away the bishop, takes, takes, takes. And then after I takes, he takes on h6. That would be very strong for him. Let's go with this idea. Let's take on f4 so that way we isolate the pawn. So we definitely have a better pawn structure than him. So my whole game plan is going to be to attack the weak pawn, which is isolated on e4. c4 is also unprotected, but he's also playing a bit aggressive because rook takes. Now he has two pieces on my knight. I only have one piece. It's very important that we see these little things. So first I'm going to play this move, queen to e6, adding more defense to my knight, but I'm also just clearing the d7 square for my knight because I'm definitely seeing him playing something like rook f1 or queen f2 to apply even more pressure to my knight. And I want to be able to just pull the knight back to d7 so that way in some lines I can play moves like knight e5 and just centralize the knight, or put the knight on the c5 square, which targets the isolated pawn on e4. So he did go rook f1. So let's pull the knight back. It's very easy for him to get access to this square. So we still have to be a bit careful. All right, so knight to d5 was played. It's getting a bit tricky because he's not only threatening the pawn, he's threatening to fork. So I kind of have to get the queen out of there and defend the pawn at the same time, which is not really easy to do. What if I go f6? I have one, two, three, four pieces on the square. He has one, two, three. So if I go f6, I hit the bishop. Knight c7, hit the queen and the rook. Queen e5, the bishop is still under attack. If he takes my rook, I take his bishop, which hits the rook. But then he takes, and then let's say I take. My whole idea is to trap his knight, but his knight is not getting trapped. All right, let's just start with queen e5 then. So that way, at least if I have to play c6 next, then I will not get forked. If he takes on c7, I may take his unprotected bishop, or I may play rook to c8, which hits the unprotected knight and the unprotected bishop. So he's going to have two pieces under attack. All right, so he decided to check us. I mean, maybe he should have kept the knight on d5 to at least target the c7 square. The only move for me now is just to move the king to h8, so let's not think about that. Now he plays c3 to defend his pawn, and then he blundered his bishop. Guy was playing some chess though, but not sure why he gave us a free bishop. I'll take it though. That's weird. I mean, I'm also attacking his knight now, so I'm assuming he's gonna pull the knight back to d5 and maybe at least attack the pawn on c7. Like sometimes these low rated guys are not weak, but the blunders is just too much for them. You know, like sometimes they're playing so well, but then this blunder just cost them the whole entire game, and that's what just happened. So knight went back to d5. He's attacking my pawn on c7. Let's just move the pawn to c6. And now he has to know what he's doing with the knight. maybe he's able to put the knight on c7, but then once I go rook to c8, the knight is trapped, so maybe not. Pulling the knight back to b4 is a safe square for the knight. I notice how my queen is pinning the rook to his queen, so I'm thinking of just playing bishop e5 to apply more pressure, and then once he moves the rook, we take the queen, we trade, and then we win that way. Or maybe I could go bishop h6. Bishop h6, it doesn't really threaten to win the rook though, that's the thing. It doesn't threaten to win the rook. All right, we're just ahead by a piece. Let's trade the pieces off the board. Let's apply some pressure to the... This is still like PP on the PP, but we don't win any material. It just helps us to force the pieces off the board. And because we're ahead in material, we want to trade the pieces. So he took with the rook. Now we just need to get the pieces active. I mean, I'm assuming this knight is going back to d3 or c2. So let's just go knight c5, controlling the center, applying pressure to his isolated pawn on e4. I want to play a5, but the knight isn't really doing much. So I don't mind him keeping the knight here, but maybe he needs to pull the knight back to c2. I'm ahead by a piece though, so I'm chilling. So he pulls the knight back, which means there are some possibilities that he wants to play b4 to hit the knight. So let's at least play a5, trying to defend against this. And if he still plays b4 and I take, at least my rook is going to get an open file. But he pulls the knight back, which means maybe he wants to go knight f3 to hit the bishop. Let's just go king g7. So that way, if I have to play something like rook to e8 here to protect the bishop, then I do not lose my pawn on f7. And remember, bishops are better than knights, but if you're ahead by a piece, then it's fine to give up the bishop for the knight, because what I'm doing is I'm trying to simplify this position. Rook f2 was played, didn't do anything, and we are about to win a pawn, because if you notice, my rook is x-raying the pawn on e4. This is called x-ray attack, by the way. I attack the pawn through the bishop. So once I move this bishop out the way, let's say to the f4 square, I'm now attacking this rook. So automatically I have two pieces attacking e4. He only has one piece. Let's just take on e4, and I'm just going for more trades. By the way, that's the reason why I chose to take with the rook. So he took, let's just take it the rook. Now he has to move his rook. I may swing my rook over in the game. I may play f5 to guard my knight. I mean, I'm ahead by 4 points here. I'm chill. Okay, I mean, knight d4 was played, which is a discovered attack on my bishop. But first of all, bro, that's a rook. Second of all, whenever you see a good move, you look for a better one. I could take the rook, he takes back, I'm winning. But because his queen is king and his rook is on the same line, I'm now able to hit him so hard with bishop e3, pinning the rook that I'm already on attacking. I'm now just winning the rook for free, outright, 5 additional points. And he resigns. More PIRC defense against 1200 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1200. More PIRC defense coming your way. We're going with the very simple setup. We should know at least the first few moves here. All right, C3 is a trick, guys. Like, that's actually, this guy's trying to trick us. Because if I take the free pawn on e4, then the queen is actually going to move to a4, which hits the unprotected knight and attack the king at the same time. So let's just continue with the plan. Pawn goes to g6, bishop g7, castle the king. Let's not get too greedy too early. The good thing is, by putting the pawn on c3, where is he going to put the knight? You see, guy's trying to trick us, but now he tricked himself because he played d4, which means that is not a free pawn. Because if he tries to check our king now, he's not winning the knight. So now we're gonna take that pawn, and black is now winning. So he plays bishop to d3, hit the knight. Let's just pull the knight back. We're already ahead by a pawn. No need to complicate anything. He develops to hit the knight. We develop our bishop. He castles, we castle, and the first part is out the way. Our king is safe. We already played d6. From here, I would love to go bishop to g4. Guy decided to move the same piece more than once in the opening. Not sure, not even sure why he pulls the bishop back. Like, the knight actually belongs on that square. But let's just go bishop g4. We know the idea. The light squared bishop is the bad bishop in the PIRC. We're just going to get rid of the bishop. And now we need to look on the opponent's last move. Notice how the queen is attacking the pawn on b7, and that's why we're going to play the very thematic pawn to c6. If you're a PIRC defense player, this pawn c6 move is going to be very important to you because not only do you protect any pieces from coming to the d5 square, not only do you defend your b7 pawn, you're also preparing to play b5 in the future. It also allows your queen to get some access to move. So now he plays c4. I'm thinking about qb6, hit the pawn, hit this pawn, but bishop to c3, very simple defense. Plus my pieces are not fully developed. So let me just finish my development. Let's go knight d7. And from here, the plan is to simply play e5. So the bishop goes to c3. That was the initial plan. Doesn't change anything. We're still going to be playing e5. The queen and the bishop is adjacent to each other. All right, we are ahead by a pawn, right? So we do want to trade pieces off the board. If I take with the pawn, then my knight is on, well, not undefended, but it's kind of defensive. But if I take with the actual knight, I fork the queen and the bishop, so the queen has to move. I take the bishop, or if he gives up his good bishop, then we take and we're doing fine. Now, there's still a little twist in this position. What the twist is? It is opposite colored bishop. I mean, he also pulls the queen back. Maybe he think I was threatening a fork. I was not threatening a fork. How do we continue to develop our pieces here? Like, I'm thinking qd4, which hits this, but I mean, the guy's just going to develop his knight, to be honest. Maybe I'm able to go rook to d8, though. And then once he pulls the bishop back, I could trade, but not sure if I want to trade. Let's do it though. Let's do it. Because worst case scenario, we're trading. But because it's opposite colored bishops, I have to be a bit careful about the trades because if it goes all the way into the end game with the opposite colored bishops, you guys know that the game could end in a draw. So he develops his knight. Let's swing the rook in the game. We're just getting our pieces in the game here. We have two very active pieces hitting the bishop. This rook on f8 is the only piece that is not doing anything. I'm assuming he's going to pull the bishop back because he needs to keep the c4 pawn guarded. And then I'm going to put my queen somewhere. Let's say b6, which hits b2, and then the rook hits the queen. All right, so he pulls the bishop back. Was expecting that. Now we pull the queen back. I mean, I think he's going to go queen c2 anyway. So, okay, maybe that doesn't really change much. And his next plan here is very simple. He wants to go rook to d1. He's also attacking my unprotected pawn. Hmm, hmm, Let's just play b6 here and guard the pawn. My queen is on the same line as the king, which means his f2 pawn is pinned. I'm thinking about knight h5 to g3, but him taking on h5 could be uncomfortable. But at least it's no longer opposite colored bishop, so that could have me to start trading pieces off the board more confidently. Right, that was not the square I was expecting him to put the knight. I mean, I also expected him to try to challenge the file, but instead he plays knight c5. I mean, it does hit the queen, so let's just pull the queen back. If I could find a way to get my knight on this d4 square, then that would be very good. Still kind of thinking about knight to h5 though, because I could play f5 in the future, and I mean, I am still gonna be ahead by a pawn, but I may have to do some very sharp endgame technique in order to win. But that's fine. Let's go knight h5. Don't put knights on the edge of the board, but I have a reason for doing this. If he takes, then it's no longer opposite colored bishops. I can always play h4 and then the pawn is guarded. And I'm assuming he wants an endgame. And this is what lower rated players do. Like they go in endgame thinking, okay, once I get to the endgame, my chances of drawing goes all the way up. But what they don't know is I know how to play the end game. They just know how to play when there's not a lot of pieces on the board. There's a difference. So the queen goes to f3. First good move. Why? Because he's hitting both the unprotected pawns. Now I'm thinking of just going c5 because if he takes on h5, we check, we force the king to move, and then we check here, and that could be very strong. So let's go c5 here. So that's actually not a free pawn because queen check is going to be too strong. He is able to check on a8, but now I'm just going to pull the bishop back. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, well, I was about to say his bishop is not doing anything, but he chose to lose the game. So let's do it. We check here. King has to move. We check here. King has no squares. If he plays f4, we takes, and that leads to mate. If he plays g3, we take on f2, and that's just winning. So let's just check on e8. Happens, bro. Now we check here. My queen guards the bishop, so I'm chilling. If he plays f4, I take, and if he plays g3, I take. So he did play g3. Let's take with check. Now he has to move the king. Still not the easiest game to win. I mean, taking with the queen is an idea because I'm just going to be ahead by 2 pawns. And he's able to check and then get the queens off the board. His knight is still on the edge of the board. So that should win the game. It should really win the game. But what if I play bishop takes? If bishop takes, he check. Can I escape all the checks? King here, he checks. King here, he checks. King here, he checks. Nah, I can't. Let's just play queen takes. It's fine. My pieces are guarded. He's not able to check the king. I am threatening a checkmate, and if he check, I just takes. And once he takes back, pawn to d3 should win the game. Instead, he plays b3, but that's just a checkmate. More pure defense against 1300 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1300, hitting you guys with some Caracan defense. It's not the Caracan. What am I saying? This is the PIRC defense. All right, let's just continue with the PIRC defense. Bishop g7, get the king out the center of the board. We are playing the PIRC defense. And once he castled, usually the plan is to go knight d7, e5, but we know about getting rid of our bad light squared bishop. So let's just get that bishop outside of the pawn chain. And then he decides to play d4. Like, why would you play d3 then d4? Should have just played d4, bro. But hey, let's just continue with our development. Knight goes to d7. And I want you guys to notice how I am not taking this knight unless they play h3. I've had students who took the knight and I'm like, why did you take the knight? And they're like, I'm giving up the bad bishop. Wait until they play h3. Let them invest the move first. Then you take the knight. And from here, we're just going to continue with the plan. Pawn goes to e5. Eventually, this pawn could go to c6. It all depends on what they play, though, because now that he plays d5, I don't really want to play c6 anymore. Now I want to play f5 because if I'm able to play f5, then it's now some King's Indian type of structure. Now, the only way to play f5 is to move the knight out the way. Putting the knight on h5 is just going to take. So let's just pull the knight back to e8. There's a lot of ideas where I'm trying to play knight c5, but not anytime here. Now we play f5 and we can also put the knight back on the f6 square. And I have a plan of just launching the pawns up to attack their king. For example, f5, bishop has to move, g5, and then h5. That has to be an idea, but we don't need to rush this. By the way, we definitely don't need to rush this. I'm gonna play a5, gaining some space on the queen side. I still want to push. Okay, he took. The idea was to push and then play knight c5. Let's just take back with the pawn. And now for the entire game, he's gonna have to think about, is he gonna play f4 and attack my bishop? Or is he gonna play e4 and attack my bishop? And I will play one of those moves, but I'm gonna do it at the perfect time. So now that my pawn structure is so mobile, okay, he pulls the bishop back. Push bishop back, push doesn't work. Need to get these knights back in the game. Push bishop back, push still doesn't work. Hmm. Actually, let's just play king to h8. I think my knights are definitely inactive, but they're not bad. Queen to, this is why you guys need to be patient. Tactics alert. What should black play here? The guy just played queen d2. Remember when we were saying push bishop back? Where's the bishop going now when I push? This is why you need to be patient, guys. Remember, the threat is better than the execution. It's better for you to just threaten something than to just outright eliminate it. Because you can win material that way. So now he has to sack the bishop. Maybe he's gonna take, maybe he's gonna allow me to take. All right, so he moves the rook. If I take, he's clearly gonna take with the pawn. Again, the threat is better than the execution. Let's just play bishop h6 and apply even more pressure to that bishop. The bishop is still not going anywhere. Here he moves the rook, still not taking that bishop. Trying to add as much pressure as I possibly can. Moving the rook to g8 was my idea when I played king to h8. I'm putting my rook on the open line. Bishop is still trapped and I'm basically doing the same thing. Like, remember that tip that I gave you guys? When I say, whenever you're pinning someone's rook, don't take the rook until they try to escape the pin. It's the same thing here. The bishop is trapped. I will not take that bishop unless he tries to escape the bishop being trapped. It's another, the threat is better than the execution. So let's get the queen in the game. The rook is already on the same line as his king, which means his h pawn is pinned. Not only am I attacking a bishop, which we will take for free, I'm also threatening to grab this pawn. Now that he saves the pawn, I can take the bishop. But do we take that bishop or do we take this pawn? Take the pawn, maybe he push, then take the bishop. Take the bishops, take the bishop. If he takes back, I check, king move. Trade the queen is winning. All right, maybe I should just take the pawn. Now, let's just take the pawn. It's going to be a harder position for him to defend because now I'm threatening checkmate on g2 and I'm attacking his bishop. Mm, I told you guys, you see, this is what he resigned. More PIRC defense against 1400 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1400. More PIRC defense coming your way. All right, so the knight goes to f6. We hit the pawn. Then we play g6. We get the king out the center of the board. Bishop g5 is pretty aggressive. That's pretty aggressive. Usually, to continue the aggression, they play e4, but he played knight to f3. So let's just get the king out the center of the board. And then he plays bishop to d3. We know the plan. Step one is out the way. The king is castled, the king is safe. Step two, get rid of the bad bishop, and then it will complete our development. Yeah, they always play h3, but we're gonna take. And knight to c6 now is surprisingly a very, very good move because knight c6 immediately targets the pawn. If d5, I could go to e5 or d4. I'm assuming he's able to pull the bishop back, but I'm gonna be able to play e5 anyways. Okay, he plays d5. Shouldn't be good. There's knight d4, hits the queen. Queen move, I play e5. Or there's knight e5 hits the queen. Queen move, I take. But do I want to take? Maybe I do, because then my bishop is very active on this diagonal. Eventually, I'm going to play c6. Remember how important pawn to c6 is in the PIRC, guys? Queen moves out the way. I can always take. Bishop to h6 could be annoying. But that can't be good for him. Let's just play pawn c6. Bishop to h6 now is a bit premature. I mean, his king is still in the center of the board. f4. He's forcing us, guys. Now we have to take because the knight is under attack. Is he going to take with the pawn and double up his pawns? That would be mad. So he took with the queen. I want to go queen to b6, which hits b2, but he's just going to cast. Like, why help the guy to get his king castled? Let's take on d5. And if he takes with the pawn, at least we now have some sort of weakness to work with. But my pawn on e7 is also slightly weak, so it's still slightly tricky. He's definitely not going to castle on the queen side anymore, though. So let's go queen to b6. Like, if he castle on the queen side, I mean, it's up to him. But already my queen is pointing here. My bishop is pointing here. I can swing the rook over to attack his knight. There's just too many pieces pointing on the queen side. He still decided to castle on the queen side. Where are my tactics now? Do I sack the knight? And if knight takes, I takes? But what if he plays queen takes? Can't do that just yet. So let's just bring more pieces in the game. Let's go rook to c8. Something is going to get sacrificed here, guys. I'm assuming he's going to attack my pawn on e7. The plan was to play rook c7, but now I'm seeing knight b5. That is annoying. But maybe I'm going to play rook to d7, chase out the knight, then put my rook back on c7. It's a bit weird. I would like to be allowed rook to c8 though. Because, okay, G4 didn't even do nothing, bro. What? Good. Every piece is now active. Every piece is now active. Like my bishop isn't unleashed as yet, but you'll see. All right, rook d2 guards c2. Can I sack now? Takes, queen takes, sack the rook, pawn takes, hit the rook. That's doing too much. Hmm. Guys are offering me a draw. Come on, bros. Have you ever seen me accept a draw? Have some respect. All right, maybe Queen A5. Queen A5 applies some pressure to A2, just in case I want to sacrifice. Rook moves. Sacrifice. Do we sacrifice? Because he has to play pawn takes. We check him here. King runs. I don't want to rush this thing though. That's the thing. We're not trying to rush this thing. But my pawn here is also very weak. Pawn B5, there's queen takes. But he's in defensive mode. I can feel it, so I don't need to rush. Let's just play A6, B5, and then B4, which threatens to. Oh, that's what we wanted. The guy just pushed a pawn on the side that his king is on. We don't do that, bro. We don't do that. In fact, maybe I could have sacrificed and then took here. And then once the king run, I check. But then the king is just going to keep running. Maybe after the king run, I swing the queen over, hit this, expose the king and everything. I think the sacrifice is working here, guys, but I think my position is just better. Okay, knight back is definitely a move because this rook is guarding everything. Now if I takes, he takes. I have an idea. I do have an idea. What's the idea? Queen here, apply pressure here, apply pressure here with the idea of playing h6. And if the bishop move, I take. Oh my lord. Is he really gonna put the knight here? I'm gonna trick him. Nah, can't even do that. Because if I go here, he takes this pawn. Knight e4 hits the rook, hits the bishop though. Let's say he moves the rook, we grab the bishop. Then he takes. What do I have? Guy's defending, man. Once the knight gets here, it's getting here next. So let's just play h6 now. Let's try to weaken the pawn on f4. He's defending very well, but the defense will fall apart. Bishop went back, expecting that move. Now we target this. If rook here, he takes. If queen here, the knight goes here. A6, the knight goes here. Oh, but then I take, right? No, because then he takes. Why is this guy defending, yo? Wait, rook here. Nah, I get far. Queen here, the knight goes here. A5, the knight goes here. Knight takes. Queen takes. Rook takes. And C2 is under attack. Very good. That's the move I needed to find. So let's hit the pawn on f4. If he puts the knight there, then I'm just going to sack. I don't care anymore. Well, not here. I mean, maybe after defending the pawn. Because if he puts the knight here, then that's just a free pawn, right? Okay. Knight moves. Hit the knight, knight c6, grab the pawn. Why? The pawn is the main defender of the knight. And if we grab the pawn, the queen takes, the knight is unprotected. So then we grab the knight, c2 is going to be under attack 3 times. He's only guarding it twice. c2 and f4 is going to be under attack. So a5 definitely works. Maybe he thinks he's chilling now if he plays knight to c6. But this is just a very nice removing the guard tactic. Okay, so knight moves, we take here. Does he have a check, a capture, or a threat? No. If he takes on e7, we take here. Uh, takes on e7, I takes, maybe rook takes. F4 is going to be hanging. So he took with the queen. We took on c6. c2 is under attack 3 times. F4 is under attack once. What will he do? Pawn b3, this is hanging. Queen d3, this is hanging. My e7 pawn is hanging, but who cares about e7? Trying to checkmate this guy. Think he needs to go queen d3 though. And then if I takes, yeah, queen d3 is definitely a move. Yo, can I just sacrifice this bishop? And then if the king takes, I have nothing? Or can I sack the rook, nah, that doesn't do anything. Take on f4, rook takes. Oh my God, how do I even find these moves? If I take on f4, I'm putting my queen on the same line as the king. So if he takes on e7, well, why wouldn't he just take with the bishop though? That's the thing. Why wouldn't he? Because I'm going to take stakes, check, and then he plays king takes. Okay, maybe I should play b4? Maybe. Hit him with b4. We don't care about e7. Take this pawn. Maybe he plays b3, then we take here. Because if I takes, bishop takes, then I don't know. All right, b4 it is. Let's continue with the attack. Let's not get too materialistic. Let's focus on attacking this guy's king. I want to take here next move, but obviously he's going to want to trade the queens off the board, right? Okay, I don't want to trade, so this is the first instinct. But what happens if I trade? The rook is going to take. Nah, can't trade. I'm not even whoa, boom, boom. This is under attack. Boom, 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 boom. Nothing? God, man. Okay, here rook takes. Check the king. He blocks. Take here and then check the king again. Then the king moves. And at least this is being guarded. But what? Maybe I should go into the end game, but that doesn't do anything for me. That doesn't give me anything. Let's just not do it. Let's not trade the queens. The game is gonna get okay. Never mind. That's what he was thinking this whole time. I think my time is running out and he's trying to flag me. Because now I'm able to check him here, grab the pawn. Well, it's kind of like the same thing to be honest. Because once he blocks with the rook and I takes, he's still gonna be able to take here. So he blocks with the rook. Taking here still doesn't do anything for me. So I have to take here. This rook is pinned. Okay, still doesn't work. Maybe g5. So if he takes, check, he has to play queen takes. Check, he has to play king takes. Yo, I don't have like a fork or anything. Maybe check him here. God. Maybe g5, hit the bishop, h5. Wait, bishop c3? Let's pp on the pp, and if pawn takes, I take on... Yo, this hits... All right, we have to pick up the pace. But bishop to c3 is such a nice move. The rook is pinned. We apply pressure to the pinned rook. If he takes with the pawn, we take with the pawn, and we're gonna take the rook on the next move. I had to find bishop to c3. That is crazy. Nobody would have found bishop to c3. I think I'm the only one who even spot that. Let's just take here. He pulls the rook back. Now we take with check. I got you. I got you. Now this rook is still pinned. I'm going to sack queen takes, takes, king takes, takes. And this should be enough pieces to win this game. Very good. Very good. Now king takes, I take with check. I'm ahead by 4 points. I still have to be very fast here. Let's give another check. Pick up that pawn. Trying to get everything that I can take. Check doesn't work. Let's hit the pawn, hit the bishop. I'm trying to take all this guy's pawn. Bishop f6. Okay, the bishop goes back. Do we pin that bishop? No. Let's just grab. Too many pawns, bro. We're ahead by 6 points. Now he takes. Do we have a fork? Yes, we do. Unprotected bishop, exposed king. The guy's trying to flag me, by the way, guys. Like, it's embarrassing. It's funny because now I'm just going to sacrifice my queen for the rook. And once I sacrifice my queen for the rook, it's over. I'm still searching for the fork though. Like if he puts the king here, then it's over. Still searching for the fork. Step on a light square. Step on a light square. All right, let's just roll the pawns up the board. It's fine. Rook moves. Now we check. The plan is to sacrifice the queen. Once we sacrifice the queen for the rook, it becomes impossible to lose. But oh, he didn't blunder the rook. Because once he goes back, if I take, that's a stalemate. The guy's being very smart here. All right, he moves the rook. Check. Okay, let's just roll this pawn up the board. We still have 18 seconds on the clock, so he's gonna try. I'm not gonna take that rook, bro. Good try, though. Let's keep rolling the pawn up the board. Then the plan from here is to sack the queen. Now we sack the queen. The pawn is 2 moves away from queening. This is now just GG's. He's still trying to win on time. Let's just go here. Pre-move the pawn up the board. Should not be a stalemate. Let's just be careful though. We queen. And yeah, now I'm just going to keep checking him until it becomes a checkmate. So let's check here. Just keep checking him. That's a good way not to stalemate the game, by the way. Just keep checking them. So that way you don't have to worry about anything. More checks, and the next move should be a checkmate. He moves the king. Okay, it's still not mate. We check here. And that's just a checkmate. More pure defense against 1,500 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,500. More pure defense coming your way. So d4, we go knight f6 at the pawn. He guards it. We play g6. Let's get step one out the way. Very simple idea. Okay, no explanation needed. We know exactly what's happening here. Bishop c4, we castle the king. And don't tell me that this 1,500 guy is going to fall for this very thematic idea. I'm definitely going to be explaining something like this in that membership video, guys, if you're trying to learn the theory on the perk. But anytime you see something like this, the bishop is on c4, we're sacrificing the knight on e4. If you're a pure defense player, and you do not know the idea of sacking on e4 and then playing d5, are you a perk defense player? Because now I'm just gonna takes, bishop takes, and honestly, computers like knight c6 here. We're not computers. I'm not gonna play knight c6 because if I play knight c6, they play c3. My knight does not have a lot of forward moves. I like to just play c6 so that way this bishop is not active, and then eventually I can put my bishop on g4 and continue to develop my pieces normally. So he played c3 anyways. Let's continue with the plan. Bishop goes to g4. Once the bishop goes to g4, they always play h3. So I'm always ready to take. But remember, guys, do not take that knight if they don't play h3, because then you're just wasting time. And I'm thinking about playing this a bit different. Like, another plan is to go knight d7, e5. But if I play knight d7, then he may play d5. For some reason, that's kind of uncomfortable because once I take, my B pawn is going to be unprotected. Knight e5 hits the queen, but he's able to just pull the queen back, and it's kind of the same thing, right? So let's just play this move. E6. Once I play e6, it's now impossible for him to push the d pawn. And now I'm thinking of actually getting my knight to the d5 square. Now, this is actually a pawn structure that you could get in many different positions. Like maybe not the fianchetted position. Like sometimes the pawn is going to be on g7. Sometimes you're going to have the pawn on g7 and the double pawns looking like this. But once they have a pawn on d4 and you have a pawn on c6 and e6, they can't push their pawn to d5. And you're the one who is basically dictating when a break is going to happen. Unless they play c4 followed by d5, it's very hard to do that, by the way. He develops his bishop. Now let's develop our knight, simple chess. If he goes bishop to d6, it would be annoying, but I'm just going to move the rook. All right, so the rook moves out the way. Let's go queen to b6 here. Following regular protocol, all the minor pieces are out. We have to show love to the major pieces. So we're moving the queen. And what I like to tell people is if you make move 15 catch you, and there's other pieces on the background that is not called a rook or a king, then you officially messed up the opening. I've managed to done it in 14 moves in this game. And the question is what to do with the rooks though. And I'm guessing it's based on my plan on attacking these pawns, or maybe I want to play e5, maybe I want to play c5. I'm assuming by now you guys know how to plan because you guys know what a pawn is. If you know what a pawn is, then you know how to plan. If you know about pawn structure, then you know how to plan. If you know how to identify a weak pawn, which is a pawn or square that can't be guarded by another pawn, or a weak square, which is a square that can't be guarded by another pawn, then you're chilling. Queen e3 was played. Why is that not a pawn? Because if I takes, he goes rook here, I move the queen, he takes back the pawn. We're not comfortable with that. I'm assuming he also wants to go bishop to h6 and trade the bishops off the board, but that's fine. Let's just go knight to f6 at the bishop. Bishop d6, I should be able to go rook to d8. maybe bishop to c5, which is annoying, but queen c7 is fine. If he plays bishop h6, I had an idea, but it doesn't work. Like my idea was to take on h6, and then after queen takes, we take on e4, and then after rook takes, we take the free pawn because there's no rook b1. But then he's gonna play rook to h4, and I'm gonna be getting checkmated. So that doesn't work. All right, now he plays b3. That's what I like to see. He's weakening the diagonal. Love to see that. I like the idea of playing knight d5 and forking him here. I mean, I could take, but kind of want to play knight d5 because I'm still forking. I'm hitting the weak pawn on c3. I'm not going to do it. Maybe I will. I mean, if the queen moves, I sack the knight and then take on d4. And then the queen has to move and I grab the rook. I mean, it's going to be hard playing against two bishop, but this is what I wanted. Once he takes, we take with the c pawn, which means what's the definition of a weak pawn? Like, because some of you guys are just watching the video and you're just listening. Were you able to answer that question without me saying it? Are you able to identify white's weakest pawn on the chessboard without me saying it? If yes, then that's good. But a weak pawn is a pawn that can't be guarded by another pawn, which means the c pawn is now weak. Again, I want to take, but after queen takes, I'm gonna have to worry about some rook lift stuff. I don't think it works though. I mean, I want to just go rook c8 and start targeting the pawn. But after takes, in some lines he checks. If I takes and then he plays queen takes, how will a rook even get to hit my king? Let's just take this pawn. I'm also trying to misplace his queen, and then I use the time to swing my pieces over. And there is no huge reason why I'm using the c rook and not the a rook. It's just that most of the action is going to be happening on the queen side, so no need to play this move. But he knows that there's no attack. He pulls his queen back in the game, but there's a very simple plan. And this is how chess masters thinks, guys. Like, if you look on this position, you count the pawns, it's equal. It's actually in the negative here because of the weak pawn on c3. My whole entire game plan is to simply apply as much pressure to the pawn on c3 as possible. So what am I going to start with? Queen to a5. I was actually about to just double up the rooks on the c file, but that's also an idea. I'm kind of giving him a chance to make a mistake. For example, if he plays rook a to c8, then it's going to be a drawback mistake because the rook was guarding the pawn. It's no longer guarding the pawn. And if he uses this rook, then this rook is not really doing anything, which is what he did. And now I'm going to play rook to c6. So the order in which we play the move also matters a bit. Oh, actually, I don't want to allow c4. Now it's a bit different, guys. Now I have to take. Yeah, this was a bit. This is different. I don't think I needed to allow this. So maybe I should have doubled up on the pawn first. But this is now called hanging pawns. Well, it's no longer hanging pawns because he took with the rook. You took with the rook. That's tricky because now this is an isolated pawn, which means now my game plan is to pile up on this pawn. I mean, I could also just take and then go rook to c8. And then once the queen guards it, I go here. And then if the rook tries to guard it, I take here. And if he pushes the pawn, then the d pawn is still very weak. So let's actually do that. Let's do that. There's a lot of ways in which I could try to press for an advantage here. It's still not easily winning for me here. The guy could also just play d5, but if he plays d5 and I take here, he's gonna take. That's gonna be good for white. So, well, nah, he's not able to play d5. My queen covers the square. Okay, that was the move that I wanted to provoke. This is called provoking a weakness, guys. Now the pawn on d4 becomes the weakness. Now we scoot the rook over to d8, and we're now targeting the weak pawn. It's not going to be too easy to win the pawn per se, but at least we're the one who is attacking and he's defending. And whenever you have positions like these, a very simple way to win the pawn is to double up on the pawn and then play e5. Because I'm assuming eventually his rook is going to be behind the pawn. That move, decent move. Because if I grab the pawn, he grabs my pawn. I could check king move grab, but then after the trade, he's going to grab this pawn. So he's doing the right thing, which is not just trying to defend this pawn, but to counterattack my pawn, because my pawn on b7 is weak. So let's just go rook to d7, protecting the pawn. Queen to e4 would also be very strong. Maybe at that point I take. I'm not even sure anymore. Okay, that also does the trick. If I take, it's tricky though. If I takes, There's rook takes, and this is under attack. If I check, king up, check, g3. Nah, we can't take that. We can't take that. It's tricky now. Okay, my b pawn is too weak. Too weak, my b pawn. Take this pawn will not help. Let's play queen c7. Let's defend the pawn. This is not really good for us. He has a weak pawn, but I also have a weak pawn. And if I want to get rid of this pawn, I may have to play b6. And maybe he's thinking about meeting b6 with c6, and then he has the pass pawn. I mean, if he trades, it's still not good, but it's okay. But let's see how we're gonna win this game. It's not gonna be easy. Well, rook to d1 is passive. It's definitely a passive move because now my b pawn isn't that weak anymore. What happens if I play e5? If he plays d5, then I take. But he's able to just protect the pawn with the queen. And once I takes, he plays rook takes. I takes, he plays queen takes. It's pretty much drawn. Hmm. Maybe I should play queen c6 and play this endgame. That's what I'm going to do. All right, let's try this. Because at least my c6 pawn is not going to be as... You see how quickly he took? Because he think, ooh, I'm going to draw the game. Let's trade. But now his d pawn is weak. What is he going to do when I hit him so hard with e5? He can't trade due to the pin. So that's winning a pawn, right? If he push, I just take. Maybe even with the rook. He moves the king. Okay, it's still a bit tricky because he's definitely going to want to win back the d pawn, and his king is a bit more active than mine. So what he needs to do is to move the king, and if I takes, he moves the king, and then maybe I go here, he moves the king. Ah, guy's playing some chess. King here. The plan is to go here. I have to be careful now. Okay, what if I go here? Because I'm going to lose that pawn anyways, with the idea of going here. If I go here, he goes here. If I push, he plays rook takes, and I can't trade because his king is way more active than mine. Or maybe I can think about it. King up, he goes here. King up, he takes. I takes, he takes. Who has the better structure to win this game? Can I play like king f5? I think black is better in this king and pawn endgame. Don't want to get too ambitious though, because the king and pawn endgame is where the real strength comes in. But I think his king is getting outflanked. I mean, I'm thinking about putting the rook here, but rook to d2 is fine. Or maybe king here, king up, king here, takes, 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 king here. Nah, king here, king up, king here, king up, takes, 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 king here. That's what I'm going to do. So this guy's going all the way to the end game. Now we go, and if he takes, I takes, and then after he takes, I go here. And my plan is my king is more active than him. Thanks to my weak pawn on c6, his king has no entry in my position, which is why he's playing move like a3. But I tell you about these guys, the king and pawn endgame has to be strong. Now my plan is to freeze his pawns on the queen side. I'm trying to put him in a zugzwang here, guys. Like, if he plays a4, then I should be able to play a5, and then his king is just literally not going to be able to enter on the queen side, which means I will be outflanked the king. Outflanking is this thing where you just go around the king. I can't really explain it, to be honest. But I know when there's a file separating it, then we're doing a good job. Okay, now he plays g3. All right, I'm trying to get some entry points with my king. So if I play h4, takes, takes. Maybe I should push this. Yeah, let's just play g5 here. Maybe he's going to play f3, trying to keep my king out. But then I'm going to play h4. So h4, if he push, I go here, and that's winning. So he has to take, and once I takes, he goes king here. But once he plays king there, I go here, and then I'm going for this pawn. And if he push, I go here. Good, good. This is king and pawn ending. If you guys want to get good at the end game, there's a link in the description that takes you to my Patreon. I have a 4.5 end game video, including so many other stuff that will help you to get better at the end game. Pushing is just losing, so he has to take and then pull the king back to try. But this is just GG's. So he took, we take back. The threat is to play king to f4, which gets entry in his position. To prevent king f4, he has to give up control over the e5 square. So, okay, never mind. This is lost. I mean, okay, let's just play king here. I mean, he still has no entry, by the way, guys. And I still have to be a bit, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but I have to be a bit more careful here. So before I take on f3, I don't want his king to go here because maybe I take and then he goes here. Or maybe instead of taking on f3, I go to g3. So now he push. Let's now be careful. Here's what we're going to do because he's now in something called zugzwang. Before I take, which allow his king to enter into my position, I hit him with a6, freezing everything. Now he has to move away his king. He's not going to be getting control over the e5 square. And once the king goes somewhere, then I take. And then I'm making progress. Or better yet, I'm actually positive that taking the pawn is incorrect. I think I need to put the king on g3, then I take. So king here, I go here. King here, I take. Yo, why let's just take the pawn. Like, why the unnecessary risk? His king is already outflanked. Now he puts the king here. Look on what I'm gonna do, guys. Like, you have to be good at these things. What's the difference between putting the king here and then playing king to f4 first? If I play king to f4 first, it prevents his king from coming here. He has to move his king, then I play king here. And then after his king move, then I take, and then I'm winning the game. I mean, after king here, it could get a bit tricky, so I have to be careful. Actually, let's just play f6. It does the same thing. It prevents the king from coming in, and it doesn't create any risk. Once the king moved, then I'm just going to continue rolling the pawn. And I'm going to now allow him to get entry because now it's going to be too late for him. Like my pawn is already rolling. By the time he does this, I'm going to already have a queen. So now I go here. I'm 3 moves away from queening, which means this is now just GG's. This is endgame masterclass, guys. I'm also guarding my pawn here. He push. Now we check. The king has to move. We're going to grab the pawn. So we're basically just expecting resignation. He resigns. More PIRC defense against 1,600 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1,600. Let's play some more PIRC defense. We've seen this before. Let's just hit the pawn. And the next, let's say 3 moves is simple. We go g6, we go bishop g7, we castle the king. Once they don't do anything weird like e5 or f4, now some persons are gonna play f4 if you're gonna be playing the pure. Like they're gonna play f4 followed by e5. Even if they don't do it in this video, I'm still gonna show you how to play against f4 in the PIRC theory video in the membership section of YouTube. So check that video out. Now, somebody has played h3. You also need to know what to do if you're not able to get rid of your bad bishop. So let me show you guys how I'm going to navigate that. So we're still going to get the king castled. Usually here we go bishop to g4, get rid of the knight, then play knight d7. Since we're not able to get rid of the bad bishop, just play knight d7. Just leave the bishop on c8 and then just play knight d7. And usually what happens is this bishop eventually finds itself in the game. It's weird. So we're still going to play the regular e5. We can even play c6 and just play some chess. And sometimes we could even sacrifice the bishop on h3. But let's see where this game takes us. Okay, he's developing. Let's hit him with e5. Simple plan. And then he plays c3. So he basically played c3 to protect his center. So I'm going to try to apply as much pressure to his center as possible. I mean, I kind of want him to play d5 because then it's an easier position to play for me to just go c6, open the b file for the rook and so on. But let's just attack the guy's center. We're going to go rook to e8 because it's kind of likely that I'm going to take on d4. If I don't take on d4, or maybe he plays d5 now that I play rook e8, because usually when they play d5, you need your rook on f8 because f5 and c6 becomes the new pawn breaks. And then he plays rook to e8. All right, I need to at least finish my development. Sometimes pawn to d5 is good. But right now it seems a bit too risky. Pawn d5 takes, 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 takes. There's already knight f6 and then once I move the rook, he plays e5. Definitely something weird. I could think about playing pawn to c5 just to attack his center even more. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go pawn c5 and just keep attacking his center. The difference is if he plays d5 now, then the position becomes closed. Now, one thing that you guys need to know when it comes to closed position is time is not as an important as a factor anymore. And what I mean by time is basically how quickly you develop, how quickly you get your pieces out. It's more important that you focus on getting your pieces on the correct squares. So he plays d5, for example. Now I want to play f5. It's like the only pawn break I have. And remember, if you want to know how to plan in chess, you have to understand the pawns. So because the position is closed, I have the luxury of just putting my rook on e8. Now I can put my rook back to f8. And you could see I'm wasting time, but it is not an important factor anymore. Like he is not able to just break through the center of the board and just punish me for moving the rook to e8 and then back to f8. And I'm just trying to slowly move my knight out the way and play f5. So now he plays a4, which makes a lot of sense. He's trying to gain all the space on the queen side because, eventually I wanted to play a6, b5, maybe even c4. But let's just continue with the regular plan. Now I'm going to play the move knight to h5. The purpose of knight to h5 is to play knight f4 and hit that bishop. And eventually I want to play f5, play the only pawn break that I have, and continue or start an attack. So he plays this move knight to c4. Good move, by the way, because he's applying pressure to our weak backward pawn on d6. So let's just go queen to e7, protecting that pawn. Even if he plays g4, we're still going to play knight to f4 because we don't mind if he gives up the bishop for the knight. Now, I have to be a bit careful about playing f5 now, though, because my queen is on the same line as the rook. Like, you guys need to be able to see these things. And because my light squared bishop is my bad bishop, and this knight is doing such a good role, attacking my weak pawn on d6, I may even play b6, bishop a6, and just get rid of that knight. Because the whole idea was just to get rid of the bad light squared bishop anyways. So this is going to help me to get rid of the knight or the bishop. So he develops the bishop to e3. Okay, maybe now I can play f5 since the bishop is on e3. It's not that dangerous. Nah, maybe it is. Another thing that I'm noticing is the queen is on the same line. Like, you guys need to be able to look on what I noticed. The queen is on the same line as the knight. Who would have seen this? The knight is protected as well. But if I play f5 takes, then the knight becomes an unprotected piece. And because the queen is on the same line as the knight, maybe he could just sacrifice his knight on e5 and then take on h5. So another thing that I needed to see, I need to play b6. Let's just go b6, bishop a6, maybe grab this knight. Okay, but now the queen moves away. That changes. Now the queen is no longer on the knight. But g4 is now a real threat. You could now say g4 is a real threat because he wants to play g4. And then if I put my knight on f4, he takes and he's ahead in material. So let's think about what's happening here. If I play f5 now, he takes, I takes, he plays g4, hit the knight. What if I play f4, hit the bishop? And if he takes the knight, I take the bishop, still down by a pawn, but at least I get the bishop and I expose his king. So let's do that. It's better than trying to pull the knight back to f6 and being all defensive. As a matter of fact, g4 isn't even possible. Because if he plays g4 now, maybe I take on g4. Nah, maybe. Nah, yeah, if he plays g4, we take on g4 and his knight on f3 becomes unprotected. So g4 isn't even possible. Bishop g5 was what he played. Hitting the queen, we have to be careful because the queen is the only piece guarding d6. So let's just play the move knight to f6, just throwing the knight in the way. This is called self-pinning, by the way. You don't want to just always throw one of your pieces in the way just because something is attacking you. Like, I only do it whenever I have to, or I know that it's not as dangerous. So for example, my rook was guarding f5. It's no longer guarding f5, but moving my knight out the way allows my bishop to now guard f5. I'm also thinking about not taking on e4, but to play f4. Because once I play f4, I get the space that I want on the king side, and then it becomes very easy for me to start or continue some attack on the king side. And the PIRC defense could be similar to the King's Indian defense in many, many different ways. Like the same setup with the fianchetted bishop, the same attacking plans if the position gets closed. His pawn on d5 is now unprotected, by the way, but I'm in no position to take that pawn or even think about taking that pawn. Okay, that was not a bad move at all. Knight h4. Because now he has two pieces attacking. I only have one defender. And I'm not really seeing how I'm going to add additional defenders. Like, I could play this e4 move though. But I'm wondering if I play e4 to hit the bishop. I mean, he can also just pull the bishop back. So let's just play f4. What this does, it just moves the pawn out the way. I'm also trying to just play this h6 move to chase away this bishop because my knight is on the edge of the board for quite some time now. And I'm assuming he will be giving up his bishop for the knight. And I don't know, like my light squared bishop. By the way, guys, if you've been playing the PIRC defense for a while, you don't necessarily have to go bishop g4 and bishop takes f3. It's just like the easier version of the perk. Like you could feel free to play the more complex version of the perk where you keep the light squared bishop on the board, but you just have to feel comfortable knowing that your bishop is going to be chilling there for a while because you know that rule that I say by move 15, all your pieces needs to be off the back rank. We're now on move 17. Oh my God. I remember warning myself and warning everybody that the rook was on the same line as the queen, and look on the move that I just allowed. Bishop takes. I think I'm chilling though, because I have to have something. Let's say I play knight takes and he plays queen takes. If I take the queen, I lose my queen. But what if I play knight takes, he plays queen takes, and then I hit him with knight takes? Now I'm really attacking his queen. My queen is also attacking his knight, so he has to be careful. And once he moves his queen, then I'll be, well, my knight isn't even under attack at that point. So bishop takes f4 was a nice idea, but if he's not winning any material, then all he's doing is I'm getting rid of my knight, which is on the edge of the board, and we're just trading pawns. I'm also going to be the only person with two pawns in the center of the board. So again, if I take his queen, I lose my queen. And you see how important it is, guys? Because I personally didn't see this. But notice I already told you guys that the rook is on the same line as the queen, which is why I say you need to be able to see these things. All right. Oh, actually, if I play knight takes d5, I think I'm in trouble. Because if I play knight takes d5, there's queen d5, and because my rooks are not connected, he's now hitting the knight and he's threatening some checkmating ideas here. Kick, is there anything I could do? Not really. The moment I move my queen, he's gonna move his queen. So I'm gonna move my queen though. It's fine. What I'm gonna do is move the queen out the way so that way his queen is under attack and I still have two pieces attacking d5. So, oh my lord, but then d6 is hanging because the queen was the only defender of d6. I forgot about that move as well, which means maybe I'm not gonna be able to take the pawn on d5. It depends. It all depends. Because if I can take with the queen, I guard the pawn, but it's also risky. There's moves like rook to d8. I may have to just play the game down a pawn. So that was just a very nice tactic that I missed. All right, so the queen went back, adding more defense to d5. If I take on d5, I'm definitely losing my pawn on d6. We don't want to lose that pawn, so we have to defend that pawn. There's knight to e8, but we don't want to trade since we're down in material. Okay, how does this work? I think we may have to play knight e8 because rook to d8 is just sad. Let's just play down the pawn. So we're officially just playing an endgame down by a pawn. But let's see how good this guy's endgame is. Am I going to be able to win this game playing down by a pawn? Because I'm still trying to play for the win here. All right, he moves the queen. All right, so he's threatening checkmate here. I could go back to f6 to hit the queen, but maybe he goes back to f3. I don't know. Maybe the guy still wants to draw. Who knows? Queen to h5 defends the mate. Is there any way for him to force my queen away? Not seeing it. So let's go queen to h5. And bishop to a6. Need to play this move. Been talking about getting rid of that knight, but notice how annoying that knight is on c4. Like, if you guys compare both of these knights, his knight is playing the attacking role, my knight is playing the defensive role. You never want to have positions like these. So let's just get that knight off the board, and it's going to be a way more comfortable game to play. All right, so he hits the queen. We are able to just move the queen out the way, though. Maybe queen here. Wait, did I just miss some? Oh my God, I just missed F2. God, God. I just missed F2. All right, do I try to get F2? Queen f7, bishop d3 takes king over. And then I had knight f6, but d6, it's still weird. It still would have been weird, but maybe he could have even lose his knight. I shouldn't have missed that move. I'm trying to fork him on f4, by the way. So I'm thinking about putting the queen on h6. Yeah, the queen on h6 also guards the pawn on d6. I'm not expecting him to blunder his f2 pawn twice. So let's create the threat of rook to f4 now. And if he puts the bishop back on d3, he's losing. Pawn g3 is bad. If he pulls the knight back, okay, then I'm happy that he's pulling his pieces back. So I could still use this attack to get something. And technically, I was planning on using my pawns to storm them up the board. Now, if you think about the purpose of a pawn storm, the purpose of a pawn storm is actually to open lines for your pieces. Now he decides to play g3. So he sees the threat, but by playing g3, he's leaving his h pawn unprotected. So finally, the light squared bishop comes in the game, winning material. All right, now he pulls his knight back to e3. Now I should be able to put my knight on f6, hit the queen. Queen has to move. Oh my lord, I only have a minute on the clock. He also has a minute, so I'm fine. Like he has more time than me, but I'm fine here. Like I'm used to this time pressure by now. Let's see where he's gonna put the queen. We still have to play a bit fast. I'm thinking queen to g5, putting my queen on the same line as the king. Maybe put something on g4. I'm also thinking of pulling the bishop back to c8, then to b7, but there's no way I'm playing that move. All right, so the queen went back. Let's go queen g5, put the queen on the same line as the king. There's no ideas of maybe knight h5, sacrificing on h3. He moves the king, immediately hits the bishop. Good move. Maybe bishop here and just get rid of that bishop once and for all. If he takes, I takes, he takes, I takes, and the position is fine. Let's just get rid of that bishop. I'm just going to take here. He didn't. He knows that the bishop is bad. All right. This is not necessarily under attack, but if I move the knight, it will be. Let's just swing this rook in the game. It's very important that all the pieces are playing. E4 is also an idea to just hit the bishop, and then I should be able to maneuver my knight. And then he took. But that has to be a mistake because now I take and it's a check, which means he's not able to take. And now he goes here. His king and his queen is also on the same line, and I'm attacking f2 twice. So once I take on f2, he is forced to sacrifice his queen. We grab the queen, bring pieces in the attack, and this is winning for us. Also, the bishop is unprotected and the king is exposed. So queen to d2 check is also very strong. That's winning even more material. Oh no, he blocks with the bishop. He has that. So let's just grab this pawn with check instead. Maybe he blocks again. No, we check again. Rook blocks is now possible. And I'll just pull the queen back to g5. I have 24 seconds on the clock. He moves. Let's grab this pawn. We have to be fast. Maybe there's a check, but I should be able to run. Moves his rook. Let's keep grabbing pawns. Now I have two pieces attacking his bishop. He only have one. He checks. Let's run. Okay, bishop goes back. Let's just hit that knight. The goal from here is to trade. We're ahead by 5 points. We want all the trades. Okay, that was a nice move. Let's hit that bishop. Very weird position. If I take here, he checks. Now we start rolling the pass pawn up the board. This is already guarded. It's funny, his time is now getting lower than mine. He moves the rook. Let's keep rolling the pawns up the board. Pass pawn scares people, guys. This is also guarded, so I'm fine. He moves the knight. Now I'm going for the trades, but he has no time on the clock. He's panicking. With that being said, more pure defense against 1700 rated players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1700. More pure defense coming your way. So d4, we go knight f6 at the pawn, knight f3, and Mr. 1700 is giving us a free pawn. That's crazy. That's a pawn, bro. So he develops to hit the knight. Let's just pull the knight back. I mean, let's just keep things simple. And now we're just going to finish our development. Rook is on the file. Let's finish the development. Develops his knight, get the king out the center of the board. Now we know what the plan is. And by the way, guys, it's not terrible if sometimes you develop the bishop to hit the knight before you castle the king. It's just more principled to me. And also remember, once the queen takes, your b7 pawn is going to be under attack. I've seen students blunder their b7 pawn firsthand. Now, knight d7 to e5 is my idea. He got his rook in the game. He's playing principled, by the way. I mean, he's being a bit too principled, but e5 is now coming on the next move, and we are ahead by a pawn, so we're welcoming all the trades. Knight moves out the way. Now we continue with the plan. Play e. Yeah, the PIRC defense is so simple to play though. Like step one, get these pieces out. Step two, you just get your bishop out, get the knight out. Step three, play e5. Okay, do we take with the knight or do we take with the pawn? Definitely the knight. It hits the queen, and queen doesn't look like it has a lot of squares to move to be honest. I mean, queen here, there's already knight h5. Then he has to put the queen on it. Okay, there's also this square. There is also that square. Now, that bishop I will take, but let's hit him with knight d5, hit the queen again. Now, both of his bishops are under attack. And keep in mind, my bishop is on the same line as this unprotected pawn. So after the trades, I'm heavily thinking about taking on G. Maybe not heavily because rook b1 may win back the pawn. I'm thinking about it, but not heavily. So the queen went back. Grab, queen takes, maybe rook or queen takes, and then anytime I take, he's gonna push. So the threat is better than the execution. Like I'm attacking two bishops, wait until he runs away with one of the bishop, and then I take the other one. Or grab this bishop, since it's the dark squared bishop, get the rook on the file, force the queen to move. Okay, let's go queen a5. Before we do all of that, let's connect the rooks. Because this is the 15th move, by the way, guys. So I'm still chilling here. Because remember what the rule says. I haven't heard this rule anywhere, by the way. So it's not like, oh, it's this chess rule that you must follow. It's just something that I say. I tell my students a lot and it works. If your king and your rooks are not the only pieces that is left on the background, by move 15, you did something wrong in the opening. I'm at move 15, my rooks are connected, I'm chilling. Okay, he plays a3. Now I'm considering taking here because after the rook moves, I should be able to take here. You see how we tricked him? So let's do that now. Take on e3, expecting queen takes, just trying to open this diagonal. Then we take on d3. Okay, I think I'm just bluffing to be honest. Because I'm ahead by a pawn, I really don't want to take here. Okay, now I can't even take there. Because if I take, well, if I takes queen takes, I take here the queen. If I takes rook move, I go here, guard the pawn. Rook move goes here, I'm losing my bishop. Let's not do all of that. We don't have to do all of that. Actually, let's just go rook to d8. I mean, I have to find a way to protect the pawn anyways. So why? Okay, then he plays b4, hit the queen. But by moving the pawn from b2 to a3, left this pawn unprotected. That's just a pawn, bro. That's crazy. All right, let's just take the pawn. That was a trick. The queen still guards the pawn, but the queen is under attack. Where do we put the queen? There's no deep explanation in why I'm putting my queen here. I guess it's because I'm putting my queen on the same line as the king, but there wasn't a lot of better scores for the queen. Pawn to d5 needs to come. Pawn c4, pawn d5, pawn c5 is fine because I'm gonna have a pass pawn. I also need to play rook f to e8. Maybe I need to develop another rule, but this is gonna be too hard. I mean, because maybe I don't even follow this rule. Like for example, what if I say by move 15, your king and your two rooks has to be the only pieces on the background, and by 20, all your pieces needs to be active. I don't know. I don't know. That doesn't make much sense. If I go here, takes, queen takes, I'm down in material. So God, man, why is this guy getting counterplay this early? I don't want his rook getting on my seventh rank. So let's go bishop to e5. Eventually, I want to go here and then play d5. Maybe even if he allows me to take the knight, I may do it. I mean, I'm ahead by a pawn. All right, that's what I wanted to see. He doesn't want to trade, so he pulls the knight back. Now I'm able to get the other rook on the file, and eventually I'm going to be able to play d5 because my d6 pawn is slightly weak. But once I play d5, then I will not have any real weaknesses in my position. Knight c3. Bishops are indeed better than knights, so maybe we don't want to trade there. If d5, there's knight a4 though. And after the queen moves, there's knight c5. So maybe eventually I do want to trade and I'm ahead by a pawn, but it's gonna make the game way harder to win. Maybe I should play a5. Because if knight here, I just go back and there's no knight c5. Let's do that. It's a pawn break. And if he takes, I takes. I hit the pawn, I hit his pawn, and I'm attacking his pawn twice. So he did play knight a4. Let's put the queen back to c7. Maybe he's going to play c3. b5 hit the knight. Knight goes back. That's not really a good score for a knight. So he did play c3. And I could play b5, but I don't want to be creating any weaknesses along the way. But I think I'm fine with b5. Nobody wants to have their knight on the b2 square. That's not a square for a knight. c4 also doesn't work, but still gonna play d5 because this was the plan anyway. I need to be careful because I'm pushing a lot of pawns, and every time you push a pawn, you're creating a weakness in the position. I want to take, for example, my c6 pawn is weak. It's not really easy for him to attack it though. I want to take and then maybe swing my rook on the open a file. If I could switch places with my queen and my bishop, like the queen in front of the bishop, then that would be good. Rook e2, check, king moves, takes, queen takes, doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything at all. Let me just play a4 here. Boom, boom. Nah, but he's just going to double up on the file. Hmm. Check, king move, grab queen take. Okay, let's do that. Let's check. I need to trade anyways. Now we take, and then after queen takes, I just go queen e5. Just converting the endgame. Queen e5, if takes, 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 then I take. So let's go queen e5, hit the queen. Bishop is slightly trapped, but after the queen move, I'll simply pull my bishop back. But then my pawn is going to be hanging, which means after the queen move, I may have to take on b4. But what if he ignores taking back and then play g3? That the game is gonna get so interesting. Because then I take it the knight, and the knight doesn't even have any square. Right, so he puts the queen on the f3 square instead. If I take g3, queen takes, yeah, let's do that. I'm also not trying to lose my a pawn. I would actually love for him to play g3, trying to think, get smart. Because then I'm gonna take it the queen, and if the queen moves, then maybe I sack the bishop, and I'm gonna have so many pawns rolling up the board. But I expect him to just take on b4. And then after he takes on b4, I'll just pull my... Oh my god, I can't pull the bishop back. If I pull the bishop back, knight d3 is a fork. I just blundered. So let's play queen to f4. I just blundered. If queen takes, then bishop takes. My bishop is in trouble. Knight d3, I completely missed. The thing is, if he plays, there's no thing. Okay, he puts the queen here. Wait. At least if he does that, I'm gonna expose his king, right? If I hit the queen here, he goes here. Maybe here. Let me repeat the position. Arjun did this against me. If he goes back, I go back. And then after he goes back, I'm gonna go somewhere else. So now it's confirmed that he wants a draw. If I play queen e5, it's drawn. So I can't put the queen on this square because it repeats the position. What if I go here, sack the bishop, grab the knight? Don't get much. So let's just pull the queen all the way back to d6. Allow him to trap the bishop. This is the length that you guys have to go if you want to get good at chess. Sometimes you have to risk losing. Like, I remember when I was younger, I used to try to win games even when my position was losing. And the person who I was playing, they knew that they were winning, but they still wanted to play for the draw. I mean, it's also a level of respect, you know? So rook to d3 guards both of the pawns. Let's just pull the queen back. I definitely messed this up, by the way, guys. But guess what? I was already ahead by a pawn. So I have 6 pawns. He has 3 pawns. So the position is still fine slightly because his knight isn't really doing much, but if he's able to get his knight on, let's say, the c5 square, then I may find myself in trouble. What I don't want to do is to trade the queens off the board. Okay, so he moves the rook. Now he's going for the trades. So maybe I should play king up. Yeah, let's just play king up. Trying to avoid the trades. So now if he goes here, I takes, queen takes, check, hit the knight. Knight d3 is the move. Queen here is also very strong. Guy's just trying to trade. Cannot blame him. Cannot blame him at all. Okay, let's just move the queen. Not trading. His rook wants to go to the e7 square. That's why I put the queen here. But he's gonna play that move. Okay. All right, let's try this square. Oh, but if I go here, the queen is gonna trade, right? Hmm. All right, let's just trade the queens. I mean, who is this guy anyway? Thinking his endgame skill is good. Nah, can't trade the queens, man. If I go here, the queens are traded. So let's try h6. I just want to get my rook on a8. Check. I have to go back. I mean, he's not gonna check, right? This is what I want to do. Like once I get my rook on a8, it's gonna scare him. It's definitely gonna scare him. Okay, he got his knight in the game. It's actually scaring me. But let's get the rook on a8 here. Maybe he's gonna pull the no. If he pulls the rook back, he's leaving this unprotected. All right, he moves the king. Slowly liking my chances again. Let's give a check. If the king goes here, we takes. He blocks with the rook though. Oh, because he's guarding the pawn. All right, takes, queen takes. Takes, queen takes. The end game should be okay for me. Should. Scary though. It's very scary. Let's not do that. It's too scary. Check. King up. Check. King back. Check. King up. All right, maybe he's gonna. Let's see if he wants to draw with the extra piece. That's crazy. Ah, the guy wants to draw with the extra piece. And then once he plays knight, okay, he should have put the knight here. He's still in defensive mode. So I'm happy about that. Let's go rook c1 and hit the pawn. He guards the pawn. And now I need to start thinking about rolling my pawns up the board. So let's play g5, f5. Very good. I'm threatening a fork. Don't fall for the fork, Mr. 1700. Don't play h4 and fall for the fork. Maybe he needs to play rook here. I check and then he plays king up. And then his king is just getting a bit too active. Just a bit too active. Just a bit. King up, I go here. If I could go king up, then h5 would be mate. The other thing is, he only has a minute on his clock. And he thinks he has a chance of winning. So he's nervous. We have to keep that in mind. We need every factor to win this game. Now he checks. If I hit the knight, he check, and then I go here. He grabs the pawn, and it's a trick because I'm threatening a checkmate. Let's see if he's gonna fall for it. Okay, he didn't fall for it. Let's do it quickly. He didn't fall for it. That's fine. He play. Oh, but he's losing because now I play h5 with check. The king has no squares. The king has to go here, and then g4 is just a fork, bro. Good try though. Good try. That's just a fork. Big up Ghana. But you're losing, bro. Good game. Now we take on c3. If he allows me to sack the rook, I'll do it. I will not get forked. That's a knight, bro. Ah. Remember to like the video, guys. He's about to resign. He resigns. More PIRC defense against 1,800 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,800, hitting you guys with some more PIRC defense. So regular setup, we need not to say too much about this. The knight goes to f6. We fianchetto the bishop and we castle the king. Like that's the first part. So let's just get the first part out the way first. No need to think. No need to use the brain. Now, there's definitely a lot of different ways in which White could play this, which is why I'm going to be explaining this in the theory video of the peer defense in the membership section. But for now, he's playing it normally. Like this is going to be like sometimes the bishop goes to c4, sometimes the bishop goes to d3. We get the first part out the way. He castles his king. We play bishop g4, which is definitely a sign that we will be getting rid of our bad bishop. So h3 was played. We take on f3. Queen takes f3. And let's just continue with the plan here. Knight goes to d7, pawn goes to e5. It's that simple. Okay, I was kind of expecting him to play e5, but I wasn't actually expecting him to play e5. E5 is actually a nice move because it attacks my pawn on b7. But I mean, I'm forced to take on e5. If he takes on b7, we take here, and then I take it the queen, and I'm expecting him to take on b7. So the position is still equal, but what I'm going to do is take on d3, and now I have the bishop. So I don't have the bishop here, but I have the bishop. And if I take on d3, he takes on c7, and position is a bit equal already, but I shouldn't mind that the position is equal because I'm the one who's playing with the black pieces. What I'm thinking about though is which one of these pawns are weaker? Because his D pawn is definitely weak, but my C pawn is weak. And I have the option of trading my C pawn for the D pawn, or maybe I could play C5 first, but that appears to be a bit too ambitious. So let's just take on d5. He's going to take on c7. My e7 pawn is going to be under attack, and I'm expecting rook to d1 next, which attacks my queen. So we still have to be very careful here. There is knight d5, but after the trade, there's queen takes e7, and I'm not seeing what I get from that. All right, let's just play e6 here. Let's just guard the pawn, just moving the pawn out the way. Rook to d1. If rook to d1, I may go queen c2, just to make his life a bit uncomfortable. I mean, there's not a lot of squares. Okay, but then there's rook d2 actually. The thing is, I was planning on pulling the queen back to f5 anyways. So let's just still play the move queen to c2. And if he decides to play rook d2, we go back. And he's basically putting the rook in front of the bishop. So it's going to be a bit harder for him to develop. I'm still trying to get this queen out of my half of the board. It's not going to be the easiest thing to do. But let's see. So he did go rook d2. Now we go queen to f5. And let's see how he's going to be developing his pieces because my rooks aren't doing anything, but his rook is doing something. But this rook and this bishop isn't doing anything. So I think the position is very close to equal. And the person gets the advantage is the person who is able to start some attacks first. Now, knight to e2 is not a bad move. I really like the idea of playing knight e4, but he's definitely going to play something like knight g3. And I can't take his rook because he takes my queen. I can't really take on f2. Knight g3 I takes, but if pawn takes bishop e5, the queen, the pawn, not bad, not bad. There is knight here, and if he puts the knight on e5, we take. And if rook takes, we take on f2. Not bad, not bad. So we are definitely going to hit him with knight e4. I don't know why he's thinking about moving his knight, though, when he has a bishop and a rook, which is not doing anything. He should be thinking about finishing his development. Knight g3 is his best try, but once I take and go bishop e5, okay, he moves the rook. Come on, bro. Why would you move the rook there? That's kind of weird. Couldn't you have just played knight g3? I want I want to play bishop e5 hits the queen. Yo, wait, wait, wait. If I takes with check, the king has to move. Big deal, right? What do I get? But what if I say the threat is better than the execution and hit him with bishop e5, covering the running square for the king? And if he moves his queen, we check and then mate him. I mean, maybe it's not going to be mate, but bishop e5 seems very strong. Okay, what if I go bishop to e5 and then he moves the knight? Nah, I'm just going to take the knight. That doesn't work. What if he puts the knight here, though? That is indeed a move. Bishop e5, there's knight d4. No, bro. Bishop e5, knight d4, that's a knight. So bishop e5, if he tries to attack my queen, f2 is hanging. There's no way in which the queen could go on a square that protects the f2 square. Bishop e5 is just such a strong move. Like everything is just working for black here. And this is what happens when your development is just complete. Like this is GG's. The guy's already crying in the chat. There's actually a very brilliant way in which I'm going to end this game. I'm not sure if he's going to resign or sack the queen or something, but let's just say he moves the queen. I take on f2. Once the king move, I play knight g3 check. Because if he takes with the knight, I check him on e1 first. And then after the king move, then I take on g3 and it's going to be a checkmate. That is why. Okay, so he did play this knight d4 move. I guess my bishop e5 was worth winning an entire piece because he did play knight d4. I wasn't expecting that. Let's take the free knight. Now we have what? Three pieces attacking f2. He only has two, so he still has to find ways to add more defenders to f2. Like, we're just chilling here. If you're watching the 1800 video, guys, you're probably in the 15% of players who watch up to this point. So I really appreciate you guys. Remember to hit that like button. He plays bishop to e3. And I mean, let's just continue doing what we were doing, right? I mean, we're ahead in material. Why not trade the pieces off the board? I'm thinking about playing rook to c8. And then if he sack the queen, I just take and I'm just winning. He has two pieces. I have a knight and a bishop. Maybe that's being a coward though. That's the thing. I don't like to do coward conversions, but probably it's worth it, right? I'm ahead by what? 3 points. If I sacrifice 1 point, I'm gonna be ahead by 2 points in a position that is almost impossible to lose. Let's just do it. It's fine. Call me coward all you want. Yes, this is how you convert games into a win, by the way, guys. If you're already ahead in material, you should be thinking about ways to sacrifice material to make the game easier for you. So now he moves the rook. I'm thinking about putting the knight here, but rook here is definitely an idea. Maybe I need my knight on the d5 square. But I'm not comfortable with the queen on the f file because a rook could go on the f file anytime soon. So let's just move the queen out of the way, play queen e5. I could also play f5 and I'm now in the end game. He has to consider this a middle game. So I'm also thinking about ways to activate my king as well. All right, so he moves his rook. There's knight g3, which sets up some ideas. I mean, the guy actually has nothing here. Let's just be patient. There's also no rook c7. So let's just play h5. I'm going to go h4, knight g3. And my plan is to set up some checkmates in this position. Okay, he moves the rook. And I'm assuming if I play h5, he's just going to take. So let's just continue with the plan. Moving the knight to g3. I'm also attacking this unprotected pawn, by the way. Eventually, I'm going to play g5 followed by h4. I'm also just waiting on the resignation, to be honest. But maybe he thinks he has a chance. Let's see. I've blundered some weird positions before. All right, so he pulls the rook back. In order to guard the pawn, let's just play h4 just to keep the knight very strong on the g3 square. And now I'm thinking about ways to get my queen anywhere on the back rank. Because if my queen is anywhere on the back rank and I'm checking his king, if he puts the king here, that's going to be mate. And if he puts the king here, that's going to be mate. So he plays rook to c4, which hits this pawn. I have the opportunity to check his king here. Moving away the rook, leave this pawn unprotected. So if I takes, he's definitely going to take here. Question is, do I have anything? Let's say I check king up. I don't want to lose that pawn because my knight is too strong there. Takes, maybe knight back to hit the rook. Nah, let's just be patient here. Let's just play g5. Patience is very important in the endgame, and the winning side also don't want to be trading the pawns in the endgame anyways. So I'm expecting him to just pull his rook back to c2 or maybe b4, anything that doesn't lose the pawn. But my plan here is simple. How do I get my queen to the back rank? This rook on f3 is also out of place because it's not able to defend his back rank. So he has to pull the rook back to f2. But if he moves the rook, he's going to lose this pawn. So now he puts the rook on a4 to hit this pawn, but that pawn is actually poisoned because now I'm able to take on b2. He still has no checks on my king, and I am threatening all sorts of checkmates on his back rank thanks to my very strong knight. And he resigns. More PIRC defense against 1900 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1900. More PIRC defense coming your way. He's playing fast, but we're able to play fast as well. We know what we're doing. He knows what he's doing. Okay, let's go here. Castle the king. Immediate e5 is very aggressive. Okay, guys, we need to know how to deal with these immediate e5 move. I'm going to be explaining this in my membership video on the PIRC defense theory. But right now, if I takes, and then takes, then it's just helping his development. So I don't want to do that. So let's just move the knight out of the way. Usually, moves like e6 becomes concerning. But now this guy played f4. F4. All right, here's what I'm going to do. Let's just get the king out the center of the board. Let's just follow the regular plan. Get the king out the center of the board. QD2 was played, which means he's more than likely going to castle his queen on the queen side. How does this work? Pawn c6 to d5 is an idea, but the moment I play c6, he may take. So f6. F6 is usually a very good move, by the way. Let's hit him with f6. If he takes on f6, I'm able to take with the pawn, and then I'm fine. If he checks, that's fine. Let's just move the king out the way. And there's also ideas of playing knight to b6, which hits the bishop. So I'm doing fine here. Like the position looks weird, but I should be doing fine because I'm also attacking his bishop and applying pressure to this pawn on e5 one, two, three, four times. He's only guarding it twice. So I'm assuming he's gonna take. I'm gonna take it the bishop. Bishop is gonna go back. Maybe rook to e8 check, or maybe after the take I take with the knight. Who knows? Let's see. Okay, so he took. And we are going to take with the pawn because it opens the e file. I don't think checking is that good for us because it's just going to help him to develop. But I also don't see the issue in just checking his king and trying to control the file. All right, here's what I'm going to do. Let's go knight b6 first. Let's hit the bishop. Usually, if they pull their bishop back to b3, we're able to play d5 and it will just cut the bishop out of the game. All right, he's going to play knight e2 if I check. So I need to make better progress. Let's play d5. I'm expecting him to castle, and then I'm going to play moves like c6, and this bishop is just going to be out of the game. All right, now I need to get this light squared bishop some work. Need to get this bishop some work. Let's go, bishop g4. He's going to put the rook here and then play h3. I want to wait until he puts the knight anywhere here, then I put my bishop on g4. So while I'm patiently waiting, I'm wondering if I should play c6 or knight c6. But one move that I like to play is this move a5 because it threatens to trap their bishop. And I'm also forcing them to push pawns on the side that their king is on. Nobody likes to push pawns on the side that their king is on. And now that he plays a5, there's some ideas that I can now use when I play moves like knight a6 to b4. And that's going to be a good score for my knight. So let's play c6. Now have a look on his bishop. It's not really doing much. Still trying to get this bishop out. If I put the bishop on f5 is fine, by the way, but I have to worry about h3, g4. Now that he plays knight f3, then we go bishop to g4. So notice we're not memorizing moves here, guys. We just know the ideas. We know that once a knight is somewhere on this diagonal and we're able to get rid of this bishop, we get rid of that bishop. This light squared bishop, I'm not even concerned about trying to attack him on the queen side because I know that I'm not going to say I'm ahead by a piece, but it's kinda. Because what is this light squared bishop doing? Because I know that this light squared bishop isn't doing much, I'm going to try to focus my attack somewhere here in the center of the board. So he plays h3. We have to take. This was not a terrible decision that he come up with, by the way, because he's trying to open lines pointing towards my king, but he's creating weaknesses in the process. So this pin is gonna get annoying soon. So let's go queen to d6. I'm also applying pressure to his weak pawn, and then moves like bishop h6 can also apply more pressure to the weak pawn. But guess what, guys? We are at move 16. And what did I say? If your king and your two rooks aren't the only piece on the back rank by move 15, something is up. But I'm fine here. Like, I like my position, to be honest. Now he plays rook to g1. All right, if I hit the pawn, he's simply going to pull the bishop back. Then I'm going to play f5. I'm fine. But this pawn is coming down to h5 in the future for sure. If I could find a way to get a knight here, that would be good. Not seeing it though. f5 shouldn't be too bad though. Like, I like f5. Because after f5, maybe he's going to go bishop to f2, trying to roll this pawn up the board. And then, what's my idea again? Knight d7 to, okay, that's the plan. That's definitely the plan. By playing f5, I'm inviting a knight on my e5 square, by the way, but how long will it take him to get a knight on the e5 square? He's trying to attack my king. I'm not necessarily trying to attack his king. I'm going to play... I know that he wants to play h4, h5 because the guy's 1900. He know how to plan. He know that pawn breaks and planning is like cousins. He puts his rook on the file. So maybe he's changing his mind. He plays rook g1 and then rook e1. Okay, now I see why. He wants to play bishop e7. Okay. Guy's creating a threat. How does this work? First of all, is it time to play knight c8? Is it time to say, okay, this knight isn't really doing much? Because we already said this bishop isn't doing much, so I don't want to go knight c4. So do I play knight to c8 first, preventing this threat? Then after his next move, I go knight d7. And then after knight d7, I should be able to play knight f6. And then the bishop is not going to be as dangerous. There's also bishop here, but maybe, okay, bishop here, and then I take. Wait. Is this one of those offense is the best defense moment? Because what if I put my bishop on h6, he puts his bishop on e7 and I take. His queen is already under attack, so he's not able to touch the rook. And if he takes, I take with check and then save the rook. If I go bishop h6 now, bishop to g5 is a move. I takes, he takes, and doesn't really do me any good, to be honest. So let's just defend. Yeah, let's just defend. I don't want him infiltrating on the e file, especially since my rook is this unconnected. It could get dangerous. But if he moves the queen, he's losing this pawn. So knight d7 to f6 is my next plan. Here, rook e2. Guy's trying to double up on the e file. Let's continue with the plan. Knight d7. Oh, now he wants to go here. Guy is attacking. What if I go here though? Because not it means I'm attacking d6 twice. How does he even add more defense to this d4 pawn? How? That's like $1 million question. How? I'm not okay. Maybe he has bishop f2. Maybe he has bishop f2. But this has to be a good score for the queen. Let's just go queen b4. And I can also connect my rooks on the next move. Like if he plays bishop f2, then the bishop isn't as dangerous anymore. This pawn on f3 is surprisingly doing a good job because it protects e4. And if I could just go knight f6 to e4, that would be something. But I'm just going to play the game as if I'm playing with the extra piece. So knight d6 next. Slight issue is he has access to some of the entry points in my half of the board. So it's definitely a slight issue, but let's see. All right, so we got him defending. Very good. He defended the pawn. Knight d6. Knight d6 gives this rook access to e7. Okay, now I'm thinking about playing knight b6 and then knight c4. He's not going to be able to take because it loses the game. But if I play knight here and then he plays rook here, then I play knight here, he takes. So does that mean I do need the knight on the b6 square? Like, does that mean I need to play knight b6 here first? Because then the rook is not able to go here. And even if the rook goes to e8, then I play knight here. Could be a plan. And then eventually I can try to get my bishop here to attack this. Yeah, let's try that. I don't, he's not going to be able to take on c4, by the way, because if he takes with a knight on d6, I take it the queen and I threaten b2. So his bishop is still out of the game. a4 was played. Good move. Good move. He's now trying to open some lines, especially since I'm not able to go knight f6 and protect that. That's a good move. All right, knight d6, h5, knight c4, or maybe I should play h5. Because if I play h5, I'm weakening g6. Okay, I was about to say, how long will it take him to attack g6? But that's pretty fast. Let's just go knight d6. Based on what's happening right now, the guy has complete control over the e file. My rooks aren't really doing anything. They're literally only pointing towards their own pawns. So if I'm able to get both of the rooks off the board, then I think my other pieces are just way better than his other pieces. But the reason why the position is so weird now, his rooks are better than my rooks. And this is how you play strategic chess. If you have a bad piece, even if your opponent doesn't have a good piece, you need to get rid of that bad piece, which is why I played bishop g4 and bishop takes f3, which is why this is an idea in the PIRC. In addition to that, if the opponent has such good pieces, you also need to find ways to get those off the board or neutralize them. Okay, he plays rook to h1. He's really preparing this h5 push. All right, so I think it's best to use the b knight. So knight here hit the queen. Let's say queen d3. Bishop here hit the pawn. Maybe bishop e3. Maybe I should just swing this rook in the game. I also want to just play h5, to be honest. Like, I do not want to open the file. All right, because he wasted a move putting the rook on h1, that should give me at least some time to play h5. And then if he puts the rook, this is how he's going to attack me. He's going to have one rook here and one rook here. But I should be in time to play moves like rook f6, king h7. Then if I have two pieces defending g6, I'm fine because it's not easy for him to add a third attacker. He's going to find some ways to get his queen over there though. So that I'm going to also keep in mind. I also don't think his knight is doing anything because the knight does not have good forward moves. So my other pieces are better than his, but the rooks, not the rooks. So he goes back to g6 to attack my weak pawn. All right, king h7 guards the pawn, rook e6 attacks it again. Maybe I could play bishop f6 and then put the rook here. But rook f6 also just sets up the trade, which I want. Knight c4, queen d3, don't really get much. Takes, king takes. Okay, takes, king takes, check. I'll keep that in mind. It doesn't work as yet though, but I'll keep it in mind. All right, what to do here? Maybe I should just play immediate rook f6. Immediate rook f6, rook e7, then I go knight here, hit the rook, which means he has to put the queen here to guard the rook. Let's do that. Let's go rook to f6, guard the pawn. King h7 is coming eventually, by the way. We have 2 minutes on the clock. He has 3:40, so we have to pick up the speed here. By the way, guys, I appreciate you guys watching the video to this far, you know. I know these videos could be long, but looks like you guys are watching it. It's usually like maybe 12, 13% of you guys are still watching from here. Not sure why he plays rook g6. Like, there's no sacrificial ideas that I'm afraid of or anything. There's also bishop h6 here. So I'm assuming he's just trying to sacrifice the exchange. I'm not sure why. But bishop h6 hits the rook. I mean, I'm attacking the rook. If the guy wants to sacrifice the exchange, I'm already defending. So might as well I defend with the extra material. Now I get to attack this pawn on f4 for free, which means now I'm going to jump my knight into the c4 square. This is what I wanted. Now I'm hitting the queen. The queen has to move, then I'm going to take on f4, which means we're winning a pawn. Very good. This is good news. But oh my, yo, we have to just really speed up though. Let's check him here. If the king goes here, that's mate. So the king has to go here. Oh my God, bro, speed up. All right, let's just swing. Let's swing this rook over to defend the king. If he moves this rook, I'm wondering if this check does anything for me. How's my time even this low? I think it's time to play b5 and try to open up some lines pointing towards his king. All right, now there's two attackers here. Let's play king up, add another defender. If he check, I block, that's fine. I can also block with the knight because it's an immediate tempo on his rook. Okay, he's trying to trade. Maybe I should. Let's just take. He took b5, open some lines. Oh my God, I just got my queen trapped. Doesn't work though because I'm able to check. Let's go here, add more defense. Oh, if knight back, I have to check. I must check. And then after the queen moves, I take. I don't know, maybe he traps the queen. Who knows? We have no time to even think here. If he checks, I block. Took with the knight. All right, let's go here. Maybe, oh, I should push. I need to push. Needed to push that pawn. 50 seconds. Let's get the knight active. Let's get our pieces very active. Knight e6 is very strong. Oh my God, that's such a strong move. I have to just pull the rook back though. Or maybe I'm able to go here actually. Because the rook is already attacking. Yeah, the rook is already attacking this. And then queen back to d6 hits the knight. Oh my God, what did I just blunder? Takes, check, fork, got him, got him. Should I hit the bishop first? Okay, let's take, because now I'm able to check him here as well. We have 40 seconds on the clock now. I'm ahead by a pawn, by the way. Bishop is still not doing anything. Okay, queen moves. Let's get the queen in the game with check. Force that king to move. Do I have anything else? Check him here maybe? Nah. Okay, let's just take. Very good, very good. Knight is also pinned. PP on that PP. And that, my fellow viewers, is GG's. Good game though. Good game. All right, he moves the queen, trying to get some checks over here. Does nothing. Let's just grab. Once he checks, I'm going to block with the knight, not giving this guy anything. And from here, I'm just trying to roll my pass pawn up the board. His bishop is still not doing anything. That's the issue. Like the bishop is just really not doing anything. All right, he's going to try to start checking me. So let's put the knight here. And then once he checks, I block the check with the knight. No more checks is possible, and I'm gonna queen on the next move. He moves the queen. And this is where the game ends. Before I queen, I check him here. If he blocks with the bishop, I take, which means he has to put his king on the back rank, and I'm going to be able to queen my pawn with check. No, it's not mate because he has to block with the queen, but then we pin that queen. Now, if he takes the rook, it's mate. So he has to allow me to take his queen, but there's nothing is there to do. Because even if he plays c3, that's mate. Good game, bro. He took, and that's just a checkmate. More pure defense against 2000 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 2000, finishing things off with a bang of a pure defense. After d4, we're just going to go knight f6, hit the pawn. He guards the pawn. Now we play g6, the regular. And now we're seeing bishop to g5, immediately applying pressure to the knight. But we're always going to be using the same setup. Nothing different. But we're seeing this e5 move. And e5 could be very dangerous, especially once this bishop is developed. Because what we don't want to do is to take, and then take because it's going to help their rook. I'm considering to take stakes and then pull the knight back. But then, or maybe I should take stakes and then, nah, we can't take. Let's just pull the knight back. Let's just pull the knight back because I don't want to consider taking the queen because that's only going to help the rook to join the game. Now, f4 was played. The opponent has a decent center, but my job here is to break down the center. I definitely want to just get my king out the center of the board first and foremost. And then from here, I'm going to start thinking about ways to keep the opponent's king in the center. Okay, bishop to c4 was played. I'm assuming he wants to play e6, and then if I takes, bishop takes. But that should not be too dangerous. Like, I'm wondering if I'm able to go c6, d5. And if I play c6, takes, I move the king over to h8. And, it could be a chess match there, but let's just go knight to b6. Let's be a bit safe, forcing the bishop back. And I still need to think about how I'm going to finish my development. Still not going to take because that take does not benefit me. If I put the bishop on f5, maybe he wants to go g4. So I'm thinking about just playing c6, d5 and just block that bishop out. And if he ever takes with the pawn, we can't take with the e pawn, so we have to take with the queen. And we should be doing fine from here. So queen f3 was played. He's definitely trying to castle on the queen side and then launch some crazy attack on our king. So what if I take the pawn now? And then after he takes back, am I able to do any cool idea to finish my development? I'm not seeing that. So let's just play d5 here to ensure that his bishop is not that strong. He goes knight e2, assuming, I'm not even sure where this guy wants to castle. So let's just focus on our development. It would be more aggressive though if he castle on the queen side and then try to start an attack on my king. I'm going to assume that he's going to castle on the queen side and play a5. And this a4 move that he just played, maybe it's going to deter him from castling on the queen side. So let's see, how am I going to finish my development? We're going to put the knight on the edge of the board, but I do have a plan. My plan is to eventually play this move c5 to get the knight back in the game. Kind of don't want to play c5 because his light squared bishop is not really doing much. So let's see. I'm also thinking of just pulling the knight back to c7, maybe to e6, hit this bishop, hit this pawn. What to do with the bad bishop? Maybe to f5, but then there's g4. It's a very weird scenario, but let's see. Whoa, guy got balls. He actually still castle on the queen side. I thought my a pawn would have scared him, and he still went over there. So now we have to be really careful because the pawns will start rolling, and I think he's gonna start with g4. And I need to figure out the plan with my development. So how do I play b5? I need to be able to play b5. The thing is, I may have to put the knight on c4, but this bishop isn't really doing much. So knight c4 takes. Maybe he's even able to play d5. So now I'm thinking about going bishop d7. If g4, I'm thinking queen d7. Maybe he plays h3. Um, it's very tricky. How about f5? I like f5. Because I'm not expecting him to take maybe f6. Why didn't I think about f6? Because we have to get this bishop out of our half of the board. If he moves the bishop, we take, and then the rook is on the same line as the king. This is the hint. By the way, that showed me f6 because the rook is on the same line as the king. And obviously, if he takes, we take back. The bishop has to move. We get the chance to counter in the center of the board, and we keep this bishop out of the game. So whenever your opponent is trying to attack on the flank, then you must counterattack in the center of the board. If you can't counterattack in the center of the board, then you prioritize counterattacking on the flanks. Okay, so he immediately pulled the bishop back, and that has to be a mistake because the rook is on the same line as the queen. All I need to do is to take on e5. He obviously took with the d pawn because the f pawn is pinned, but pinned pieces do not protect. So I am definitely able to take on e5. Now, e7 is a bit soft, and my queen is slightly overworked. But the moment I take here, if he plays queen to e6, I immediately pull back to f6, and I should be safe. So let's just take on e5. We're already ahead by a pawn, slightly defensive position, but the position was already defensive when it was equal. So I'll take the pawn. Okay, he puts the bishop back on g5. And what to do with this? I mean, the bishop isn't immediately under attack, but it's a bit uncomfortable, to be honest, having my bishop here. I'm thinking about just pulling it all the way back to g7, but my pawn on e7 is weak. So let's just go bishop to f6. And if he, ooh, he did not take. Rook f7 is slightly scary. Bishop back to g7 is okay. Yeah, let's go with bishop back to g7 because it keeps the rook on the same line. Whoa, I was expecting that. I was expecting the pawns to start rolling, especially since he's down by a pawn. He's going to be coming with everything he has. Do not push pawns on the side that your king is on, guys, unless you are absolutely forced to do so. I'm thinking of playing h5 here because I have good control over the light squares. So he's not necessarily able to play f5 anytime soon. I want to play bishop to g4, and I'm preventing him from playing h5. Like, if I allow him to play h5, it's going to activate his rook, and he's going to be in a very good position. All right, so he moves the queen, which is applying pressure to e7, applying pressure to my knight. We have to pick up the pace a bit here. Developing, I'm thinking of just developing my bishop. I mean, it's my last piece. It's the only piece that isn't doing anything. Let's just get that piece in the game. I'm also pinning the knight, and it is the bad piece. So eventually, I want to just give up that bishop. This knight is a bit soft, though, because it makes my... Whoa! If I take the rook, I am forked. Okay, that's fine. But if I play qd6, hit this pawn, knight is unprotected, but there is no immediate ways for him to punish me, which means now the rook is under attack and f4 is under attack. Rook e1 attacks e7 though, which means if we do the trade, he's going to be able to take on e7, but then I'm going to be able to block the check. And if takes takes, I am not losing. What do you do when you're ahead in material? You trade the pieces off the board and you simplify. So we take, he's going to take. We have to pull back here. And if he takes, we take back. Not really expecting him to take. I'm expecting him to just defend the rook. But now I'm going to go rook to f7 because I want to take. And then after he takes, we go back to f7 because we're ahead by a pawn. And have a look on this bishop, guys. I mean, you can say whatever you want. My knight is on the edge of the board. I'm going to take it off the edge of the board very soon. Don't worry about that. But this light squared bishop, he's going to have to play a good amount of moves to get that bishop in the game. I mean, he has to move the c pawn. My next move, okay, I didn't see that, but I have to take. Let's not. And then after he takes, we go knight c5, hit the bishop, hit the rook. I definitely don't want to trade, but because of the time ticking, I may just take that bishop. But let's keep our options open for now. Let's take on e7 and then play rook to f7 because we still want to trade, but not this knight for this bishops. Like bishops are better than knights, but this bishop, it just isn't doing anything right now. Okay, he pulls the rook back, not trading. This knight needs some action. Let's pull it to c8, maybe to d6. I have some ideas of playing rook to f2, which attacks this pawn on g2. There's also knight to d6 to e4. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to plant a... Nah, not really. All right, he pulls the bishop back. He's planning on getting the bishop in the game now. All right, what if I go here, hit the pawn? Let's try this first. I think I have time to try something. For example, maybe he's going to play rook e2 and then trade the rooks. I would be so happy if he does that with this low time that I have, which he didn't. He hits the knight. So we hit the rook, and then if he checks, we block the check. By the way, guys, if you're still watching this video, you're among like the 9% of persons who still watch the 2000 level. So I appreciate you guys so much, but don't forget to hit that like button. It means the world to the channel. All right, so rook goes here, hits the knight. I'm gonna trick this guy so bad. I'm gonna hit him with knight e4. Nobody knows that I'm threatening a checkmate because it's not a checkmate. But if he takes and I take back, then I'm threatening a checkmate. And I'm attacking this pawn. Remember to get your endgame level up, guys. Get your endgame level up. The Patreon link is in the description. So he took. Now we take. A checkmate is being threatened. His pawn is under attack. I'm wondering if he checks, I am gonna block because now he has to trade because I'm threatening the mate and I'm hitting the rook. And then once he trades, it's a very simple win. Pawn to c4 will get his bishop way more active. So we definitely need to be a bit careful now. And if I take stakes, then that's just an iso pawn. So, okay, maybe I should push actually. What am I doing? Let's just push. His bishop is still bad because the pawn is on light squares. And if he, ooh, but now I'm able to play c5, bro. Now your bishop is really bad. He's activating his king though, so we have to be a bit careful. Check doesn't do much. Maybe pull the knight back here. Not seeing what that does. Let's just pull the knight back. I have a pass pawn. This is my strength right here. I want you guys to notice how I'm also keeping my pawns on dark squares. Once I keep my pawns on dark squares, his bishop is basically useless. This pawn is still slightly weak, but let's just activate the king. King activity is just crucial in the end game. I'm trying to get my king as active as possible, especially since he has this pawn on the dark square. And by the way, I have such a monster of a knight because my knight is literally preventing his bishop from even thinking about attacking my pawn, and he's about to lose a second pawn. And he resigns. Please subscribe.